Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Mystery Channel. Tonight, we'll be exploring the fascinating world of black magic, one of the strangest and most enduring mysteries in human history. For centuries, people have claimed that dark rituals could control luck, health, love, and fortune, and even the actions of other people. Some believed certain books contained dangerous knowledge. Others feared that symbols, objects, words, or personal possessions could somehow carry a supernatural force. What makes black magic so fascinating is how often these ideas appear across different times and cultures. Again and again, people have believed that there may be ways to affect the world that remain hidden from ordinary understanding. Some of these stories come from ancient texts. Others survive through folklore and secret traditions. And many still inspire speculation today. Tonight, we're going to explore the most curious claims, strange practices, and unexplained ideas contained within this mysterious subject. If you enjoy these curious journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Let your body soften and allow your eyes to grow heavy. And allow your mind to gently unwind as we explore the mysterious world of black magic together. Let's begin. Black magic has been feared for thousands of years across a wide variety of cultures. Long before the phrase itself existed, societies were already distinguishing between acceptable supernatural practices and magic believed to cause harm. Ancient communities in the Mediterranean feared hostile spells. Mesopotamian texts describe sorcery as a real danger requiring protection. Later European traditions developed their own ideas about forbidden magical power. Similar fears appeared elsewhere without following one universal system. That is what makes the pattern intriguing. Human beings, separated by enormous distances, repeatedly imagined that secret knowledge might allow one person to influence another through invisible means. Historians usually explain these similarities through common human anxieties about illness, misfortune, jealousy, and uncertainty. Others wonder whether some recurring beliefs preserve fragments of much older traditions that traveled farther than we realize. There is no evidence for one hidden global school of black magic. Even so, the repeated idea remains striking. Across centuries, people kept returning to the possibility that intention itself could somehow become a weapon. Ancient curse tablets reveal ordinary people once tried to control fate. Thousands of small inscribed tablets have been recovered from the ancient Mediterranean world. Many were made from lead and carried intensely personal requests. Their writers wanted rivals restrained, stolen property returned, romantic competitors removed, or opponents defeated in court. These were not merely stories told about mysterious sorcerers. They were physical objects created by ordinary people who apparently believed supernatural intervention might alter everyday events. Some tablets were folded before being placed in graves, wells, or other locations associated with hidden powers. The practice lasted for centuries and crossed social boundaries. What remains uncertain is how literally every participant understood it. Perhaps some viewed the ritual as symbolic. Others may have been completely convinced that invisible beings could interfere with human affairs. A few researchers have even suggested that performing the act itself provided psychological relief when legal or social power was unavailable. Whatever the explanation, these tablets preserve something remarkable. Private frustration survived underground for nearly 2,000 years. Some grimoires claim hidden names could command forces beyond human understanding. Among the strangest ideas in ceremonial magic is the belief that knowing a supernatural being's true name grants authority over it. Medieval and early modern magical books repeatedly emphasize special names that were supposedly concealed from ordinary people. These might appear alongside elaborate titles or unfamiliar strings of letters. Their power was believed to come from precise knowledge rather than simple belief. The magician was not always imagined as begging for assistance. In some systems, the correct name supposedly forced obedience. Versions of this idea appear much earlier than medieval Europe. Ancient religious traditions also treated divine names as unusually powerful. Scholars generally understand such practices through the importance that pre-modern cultures placed on language and identity. Yet enthusiasts see another possibility. They wonder whether the strange names preserved in magical books are distorted, remains of older formulas whose original meanings have been lost. No hidden command language has ever been demonstrated. Still, the idea that reality might respond differently when addressed correctly has proved extraordinarily difficult to erase. The legendary Book of Abramelon promises contact with a mysterious guardian spirit. A manuscript known as the Book of Abramelon describes one of the most ambitious operations in Western ceremonial magic. Its central promise is extraordinary. For a prolonged period of preparation and devotion, the practitioner supposedly establishes contact with a personal spiritual intelligence, often called the Holy Guardian Angel. Only after that encounter does the text move toward controlling less benevolent forces. The surviving manuscripts vary, which has created long arguments about the book's age and original form. Its story claims that a traveler named Abraham learned the system from an Egyptian magician called Abramelon. Historians cannot verify that meeting. Even so, the book became enormously influential after versions circulated widely in the modern occult revival. Some practitioners interpret the guardian literally as an independent being. Others describe it as a higher part of the mind. More speculative readers imagine some unknown intelligence encountered through altered consciousness. The mystery survives because the promised experience is personal. Anyone claiming success can describe it, but nobody else can directly enter that experience. Medieval demonology transformed scattered folklore into elaborate systems of unseen powers. European ideas about demons were never completely consistent. Local stories described troublesome spirits, while religious texts offered different categories of supernatural beings. Over time, scholars began trying to organize this confusing material. Medieval and early modern demonologists produced increasingly detailed hierarchies. Some assigned names, ranks, duties, territories, or personalities to beings that earlier traditions had described far less precisely. This process created the impression of an enormous, invisible administration operating beyond ordinary sight. Later, grimoires borrowed from these systems and added even more detail. Historians see this as a clear example of ideas accumulating through copying and reinterpretation. Yet the precision remains fascinating. Why did generations of writers devote so much effort to cataloging entities they could not publicly demonstrate? Believers might say the descriptions came from genuine encounters. Skeptics might answer that each writer inherited earlier material and expanded it. Either way, the result was powerful. Loose folklore slowly became something resembling a complete hidden geography of the supernatural world. Witch bottles were buried beneath homes to trap invisible attacks. Archaeologists investigating old buildings in Britain and parts of North America have found peculiar sealed containers hidden inside walls, beneath hearths, and under thresholds. Some contain bent pins, nails, hair, fabric, or traces of liquid. These objects are commonly interpreted as witch bottles. Their supposed purpose was defensive. If someone believed harmful magic had been directed toward a household, the bottle might draw in the attack and imprison it. The practice appears especially strongly in the early modern period. What makes these discoveries compelling is their secrecy. Many bottles were concealed so carefully that later occupants had no idea they existed. This suggests the people who placed them may have considered the protection too important to disturb. Researchers debate the exact meaning of individual examples because hidden containers could serve other purposes. Yet written accounts confirm that countermagic involving bottles was genuinely practiced. The eerie part is simple. Some modern families have discovered that an unseen protective object had been sitting beneath their home for centuries. Certain curses became famous because victims believed they worked with impossible precision. Throughout history, stories have circulated about curses that seem to unfold exactly as predicted. A person receives a warning. Misfortune follows. The sequence becomes memorable because the two events appear connected. In many cases, the original details become difficult to verify once the story has been repeated for decades. Yet belief can make the experience surprisingly powerful. Someone expecting harm may notice every setback while ignoring ordinary periods when nothing happens. Stress can disturb sleep and concentration. That can produce further mistakes, which then seem like fresh evidence that the curse is advancing. Psychologists have documented related expectation effects without requiring anything supernatural. Believers offer another interpretation. They argue that fear may not merely distort perception. Perhaps attention itself somehow strengthens whatever influence has been directed toward the victim. There is no reliable evidence that curses operate this way. Even so, the apparent precision of famous curse stories keeps them alive. When coincidence arrives at exactly the wrong moment, rational explanations can suddenly feel much less satisfying. Protective magic often looked almost identical to the magic it opposed. The historical line between harmful sorcery and protective magic could become surprisingly thin. Someone worried about a curse might respond with charms, symbols, hidden objects, spoken formulas, or rituals intended to reverse the threat. To an outsider, those actions could look remarkably similar to the practices being feared. The difference often depended entirely on intention. One practitioner claimed to defend. Another was accused of attacking. This created a strange social problem. Communities that officially condemned magic sometimes relied on local specialists to fight supposed supernatural harm. In Britain, these figures were often called cunning folk. People sought them out when illness or bad luck appeared unnatural. Religious authorities could object to their methods, yet desperate families continued using them. The contradiction reveals something important about black magic. The label has rarely described one fixed set of actions. It usually reflects who is performing them and why. A forbidden ritual in one setting can become protection in another. The same symbol may frighten one person while reassuring someone else. Forbidden books gained reputations so powerful that people feared opening them. Some magical books became frightening before anyone even knew what they contained. Stories warned that reading the wrong page could summon a presence, attract misfortune, or reveal knowledge that could not be forgotten. These legends surrounded famous grimoires and also obscure local manuscripts. A book might be kept locked away or passed down with instructions never to open it. Such stories are difficult to separate from ordinary folklore. Dangerous books make compelling warnings because the listener is naturally tempted to learn what has been forbidden. In earlier centuries, literacy itself could add to the mystery. A manuscript filled with unfamiliar symbols might appear almost supernatural to someone unable to read it. Some people believed the text carried power independent of its reader. Others feared the knowledge inside. Modern cursed book stories continue the same pattern through novels and internet legends. There is no verified text that harms people merely through reading. Yet few ideas are more persistent than the possibility that information itself can be dangerous. Black magic traditions repeatedly connect secrecy with the belief that knowledge has power. Across many occult traditions, secrecy is treated as more than simple privacy. Hidden knowledge is often imagined as becoming weaker when exposed carelessly. A name may be concealed. A ritual might be shared only after initiation. A manuscript can deliberately omit crucial explanations. This creates an intriguing paradox. The more secret a tradition claims to be, the harder it becomes to prove whether its hidden teachings ever existed in the form later followers imagine. Historians frequently find that supposedly ancient secrets changed as texts were copied. New material entered the tradition while old material disappeared. Believers sometimes interpret those gaps differently. They suggest written sources preserve only an outer layer, while important knowledge traveled orally. That possibility is difficult to test. Secrecy itself prevents verification. It also makes traditions unusually resilient because missing evidence can be explained as evidence that the real material remained concealed. This may be one reason black magic retains its mystique. What is absent can become almost as powerful as what survives. Roman curse tablets asked supernatural forces to punish thieves and rivals. Roman life produced plenty of ordinary frustrations, and some people responded in extraordinary ways. Archaeologists have recovered cast tablets from temples, baths, graves, and other sites across the former empire. Many contain requests aimed at specific individuals. A stolen cloak could inspire an appeal for supernatural justice. A legal opponent might be named before a hearing. Competitors in sporting events were sometimes targeted as well. The language ranges from formal to intensely emotional. These tablets reveal a world where supernatural action could sit surprisingly close to normal daily life. The person making the curse did not necessarily see themselves as sinister. They may have believed they were restoring fairness when ordinary institutions had failed. Some requests even leave punishment to a deity rather than specifying what should happen. That complicates modern ideas about black magic. Harmful intent was not always separated neatly from religion. In certain ancient settings, a curse could be framed almost like a private legal petition submitted to powers believed capable of enforcing it. Ancient Egyptians destroyed written names to symbolically erase dangerous enemies. In ancient Egyptian belief, a person's name could carry remarkable importance. It was connected to identity so strongly that preserving a name helped preserve memory after death. The opposite idea followed naturally. If a hostile name were damaged or erased, perhaps the person's influence could also be weakened. Archaeologists have found objects sometimes called execration texts. Names of enemies were written onto pottery figures or vessels, then deliberately broken. These acts appear to have been performed against political threats and hostile groups. The destruction was symbolic, but symbolism in Egyptian religion could be treated as an active force. An image was not always merely an image. A written name could participate in the identity it represented. Modern researchers interpret these practices within a larger religious worldview, rather than simply calling them black magic. Still, the underlying idea feels startlingly familiar. Destroy the representation and you may affect what it represents. Similar logic appears in later magical traditions, yet Egypt developed its own version thousands of years earlier. Mesopotamian rituals treated hostile sorcery as a threat that could be reversed. Ancient Mesopotamian societies left behind detailed texts concerning feared magical attacks. One of the best-known collections is called Meklu, which means burning. These rituals were not presented as experiments with forbidden power. They were designed to counteract sorcery believed to have already harmed someone. The suspected attacker could be represented symbolically, and the hostile influence was then ritually undone. This reveals an important distinction. Ancient people did not always divide supernatural practice into magic and religion using modern categories. A ritual could involve official religious specialists, while still addressing what we might describe as witchcraft. The texts show that fear of secret magical harm was organized enough to generate formal responses. That suggests people expected these anxieties to arise repeatedly. Skeptics can see the rituals as psychological reassurance within a shared belief system. Believers may wonder whether they preserve knowledge developed through centuries of observation. There is no evidence that the procedures neutralized supernatural attacks. Yet the seriousness with which they were recorded leaves little doubt that the fear itself was real. Medieval Europeans sometimes blamed unexplained illness on deliberately hidden magical attacks. When sickness appeared without an obvious cause, medieval communities had far fewer diagnostic tools than we do today. Disease could spread suddenly. Symptoms might change without warning. Recovery could appear just as mysterious. In that uncertainty, suspicion sometimes turned towards sorcery. A strange object discovered near the home might become evidence. A recent argument could supply a suspected motive. Someone already considered socially unusual might find themselves accused. The fascinating part is how quickly unrelated details could combine into one convincing explanation. Modern medicine can account for many illnesses that once seemed supernatural, but not every historical case can be reconstructed confidently. Contemporary records may be incomplete or written by people who already assumed magic was involved. Some modern occult believers still argue that certain unexplained conditions might have a spiritual component. Science has not established such a mechanism. Yet the older pattern remains psychologically understandable. When suffering has no visible cause, an invisible cause can become strangely persuasive. Black magic offered an answer precisely when ordinary explanations were weakest. The Greek magical papyri preserve spells from a remarkable mixture of traditions. A collection now known as the Greek magical papyri offers an extraordinary glimpse into the magical world of late antiquity. The surviving texts come mainly from Egypt and include material written in Greek alongside elements drawn from Egyptian and other religious traditions. What makes them fascinating is the mixture. Divine names appear in unusual combinations. Ritual formulas sit beside practical requests. The boundaries between religion, magic, astrology, and private spiritual experimentation become extremely difficult to separate. Some texts seek protection or knowledge. Others pursue influence over relationships or enemies. Scholars study them as historical documents rather than proof of supernatural effects. Even so, the collection challenges the idea that ancient magical systems were cleanly divided by culture. Practitioners borrowed and combined material when they believed it carried power. Some mysterious words may have been intentionally distorted or preserved for their sound alone. To modern ears, the result can feel like evidence of a hidden international occult tradition. More cautiously, it shows that magical ideas traveled remarkably well across cultural boundaries. Icelandic magical books contained strange symbols linked with protection and forbidden knowledge. Early modern Iceland produced manuscripts filled with magical signs often called Geldrastafir. Their designs can look startlingly modern despite being centuries old. Some were associated with protection. Others were connected with practical wishes or supernatural influence. One famous manuscript is the Galdrabok, which preserves a mixture of Christian language and older magical ideas. This combination is important because it overturns the simple picture of magic existing completely outside religion. A practitioner might use biblical references while also employing symbols that authorities considered suspicious. Later popular culture sometimes presents every Icelandic stave as an ancient Viking symbol, but that claim is often exaggerated. Many surviving examples come from much later periods. The uncertainty has only increased their fascination. Some symbols may preserve older influences, while others were products of early modern experimentation. Their original meanings can also shift when copied into newer occult traditions. What survives is therefore both historical and mysterious. A strange mark drawn centuries ago can acquire an entirely new mythology after its original context disappears. Magical squares were believed to hide supernatural power inside mathematical patterns. A magical square arranges numbers so that rows and columns produce matching totals. Today, the pattern can be appreciated as recreational mathematics. Earlier occult traditions sometimes saw something more profound. Order itself could appear meaningful, especially when mathematics was connected with astrology or divine harmony. Renaissance occultists associated particular number squares with planets. The arrangement was treated as a symbolic link between human calculation and cosmic influence. From these patterns, practitioners sometimes derived seals or other designs. No supernatural mechanism has been demonstrated, yet magical squares occupy a fascinating borderland because the mathematics is completely real. The symmetry genuinely exists whether anyone believes in magic or not. That may explain why these objects felt different from ordinary charms. They appeared to reveal hidden structure rather than merely inventing it. Some esoteric thinkers believed number was a language built into the universe. If that were true, a perfectly ordered square might seem less like decoration and more like a tiny diagram of an invisible law waiting to be used. Planetary magic connected specific hours with unseen forces believed to influence events. Astrological magic developed elaborate systems linking earthly activity with the movements of the heavens. One influential idea divided days and nights into planetary hours. Each period was associated with a traditional planet and its supposed qualities. The actual lengths of these hours could vary with sunrise and sunset. Practitioners believed timing mattered because a ritual performed under the right celestial influence might become more effective. Historians trace these systems through medieval and Renaissance sources. They reflect an era when astrology and astronomy had not yet separated as sharply as they have today. The planets were not viewed as distant rocks alone. They were symbols of active forces woven into earthly life. Modern science has found no evidence that planetary hours alter magical outcomes. Still, the system carries a strange intellectual elegance. It imagines time itself as changing character throughout the day. To believers, an ordinary Tuesday afternoon might not simply be an afternoon. It could be a temporary window when one particular cosmic influence was believed to be unusually strong. Mirrors became associated with divination because reflections seemed strangely separate from reality. Before modern glass became common, a clear reflection could feel surprisingly unusual. Polished metal, dark water, and later blackened mirrors all offered images that appeared real while existing beyond reach. This made reflective surfaces natural tools for supernatural interpretation. Practitioners sometimes stared into them, hoping unusual shapes or visions would emerge. The method is often called scrying. Psychology offers an intriguing explanation for at least some experiences. When a person gazes steadily under dim conditions, normal visual processing can produce distortions. Faces may appear to change. Shadows can shift. Features may seem unfamiliar. Someone expecting a supernatural message could interpret these effects very differently from someone expecting an optical illusion. Occult traditions often describe the mirror as a focus rather than the source of the vision. Some people believe it helps consciousness notice information normally ignored. Others imagine it as a symbolic doorway. No evidence proves that mirrors reveal external supernatural realities. Yet the experience can feel powerful because the observer sees the strange transformation happening with their own eyes. Crossroads gained magical reputations because they represented places where paths and possibilities met. Crossroads appear in supernatural traditions from several cultures, although their meanings are not identical. Their significance may come partly from simple geography. A crossroads is neither one road nor another. It is a place of decision where direction becomes uncertain. In some traditions, that ambiguity made crossroads suitable locations for offerings, divination, or stories about encounters with unusual beings. Ancient Greek religion associated crossroads with Hecate in particular contexts. Later, European and American folklore developed different supernatural ideas around similar places. Popular culture eventually simplified many of these traditions into stories about dangerous bargains. That modern image can obscure the diversity underneath it. Not every crossroads belief involved sinister magic. Some were protective or religious. Yet the location repeatedly attracted stories about boundaries and choices. Anthropologists often describe such places as liminal because they sit between ordinary categories. More speculative interpretations imagine crossroads as psychologically powerful because decisions heighten the tension. When someone expects something unusual at a meaningful location, even an ordinary encounter can become unforgettable. The Key of Solomon became one of history's most influential magical manuscripts. Despite its famous name, the Key of Solomon was not written by the biblical King Solomon. The surviving tradition emerged many centuries later, although it drew authority from legends portraying Solomon as a master of supernatural knowledge. Different manuscripts contain different material, which means there is no single perfect version. The text includes ceremonial preparations, prayers, symbols, and instructions associated with controlling or contacting spiritual forces. Its reputation spread widely through European occult culture. Why Solomon? Medieval legends often treated him as the ideal ruler over hidden beings. Attaching his name to a manuscript instantly suggested ancient authority. Historians regard this as pseudonymous authorship rather than evidence of a lost royal book. Occult readers sometimes leave the possibility open that later copies preserve fragments of something older. That cannot be demonstrated. The greater mystery may be cultural. A text with uncertain origins managed to convince generations that it belonged to a secret chain of wisdom reaching deep into the past. Its legendary author became almost as important as its actual contents. Some medieval magicians believed demons could be constrained by sacred authority. The popular image of black magic often involves someone willingly serving sinister forces. Medieval ceremonial texts sometimes describe almost the opposite relationship. The operator might invoke divine authority first, then attempt to command a lesser spirit into obedience. This created a strange theological loophole. Practitioners could argue that they were not worshipping forbidden beings because they were supposedly forcing them to submit under sacred power. Church authorities were rarely persuaded. Such practices could still be condemned as dangerous or illicit. Yet the logic appears repeatedly in manuscripts. It suggests that some educated magicians wanted supernatural knowledge without abandoning a religious worldview. The resulting rituals mixed devotion with coercion in ways that now seem contradictory. Historians interpret this as part of medieval learned magic. More speculative readers wonder whether the complicated protections reflect stories of genuine, frightening experiences. There is no independent evidence that entities appeared. Even so, the structure of the texts reveals something fascinating. Their authors behaved as though invisible beings were not vague metaphors, but personalities that could negotiate, resist, and obey. Renaissance occultists tried to separate respectable magic from condemned sorcery. During the Renaissance, some intellectuals became deeply interested in astrology, alchemy, mystical philosophy, and forms of ritual magic. yet they did not necessarily consider these pursuits evil. Writers attempted to distinguish natural or philosophical magic from practices associated with harmful sorcery. The separation was never easy. A scholar might argue that studying hidden properties in nature was legitimate while invoking hostile spirits was forbidden. Critics could still view both with suspicion. Figures such as Marsilio Ficino explored ideas about celestial influence while carefully framing their work in acceptable philosophical terms. The debate reveals that the word magic covered an enormous territory. It could mean fraud, medicine, astrology, religious experimentation, or something believed to be genuinely dangerous. Modern categories often flatten those distinctions. What we casually call occultism once involved fierce arguments over where knowledge ended and forbidden practice began. Some people now speculate that certain rejected traditions contained observations misunderstood by later science. That remains unproven. What is clear is that the Renaissance treated hidden forces as a serious intellectual question. European cunning folk were hired to identify curses and discover supposed enemies. In villages across parts of Europe, people sometimes sought help from specialists known by names such as cunning folk, wise people, or charmers. Their services could include healing, locating stolen goods, finding missing property, and identifying the person supposedly responsible for supernatural harm. They occupied an awkward social position. Communities might distrust magic while still relying on someone reputed to understand it. A client who believed they had been cursed wanted answers. The cunning practitioner might use prayer, divination, charms, or symbolic tests to provide them. Sometimes the result pointed suspicion toward a neighbor. That could deepen existing conflicts. Historians therefore view these practitioners as part of both folk medicine and local social life. They were not necessarily accused witches themselves. In some cases, they helped people who feared witchcraft. This complicates the usual picture of black magic. The same community could condemn one supernatural practitioner while paying another. Power did not depend only on the method. Reputation and perceived intention could decide whether magic was feared or trusted. Witch marks found in old buildings were probably meant to repel supernatural danger. Renovations to historic buildings sometimes uncover scratched patterns beside fireplaces, doors, beams, or windows. Many are now described as apotropaic marks, meaning signs intended to turn away harmful influences. Common designs include intersecting circles and repeated letter-like shapes. Their exact interpretation varies, and not every strange carving was necessarily magical. Builders and occupants left marks for many ordinary reasons. Yet the concentration of certain symbols near vulnerable openings strongly suggests a protective purpose in some cases. People once believed that dangerous forces might enter a home through places where the outside world crossed into domestic space. A fireplace was especially significant because it created an open channel through the structure. Modern homeowners occasionally discover these signs without realizing previous residents had deliberately concealed them. The marks provide rare evidence of private beliefs that official records might never mention. They are not proof that anyone encountered supernatural danger. They are proof that someone feared it enough to alter the building. Centuries later, the protective symbol remains, even though the original anxiety has vanished. Poppets were not originally sinister and were used for many different intentions. Popular culture often presents a small human figure as an automatic symbol of harmful magic. Historically, image magic was far more complicated. Figures made to represent people appear in different cultures and could be used for healing, protection, influence, or hostile intentions. The English word poppet simply developed from a term for a small figure or doll. The frightening idea that harming the image automatically harms a distant victim is only one interpretation. Even the famous association with Haitian voodoo is largely a product of outsider misunderstanding and later entertainment. Voodoo is a complex religion and should not be reduced to fictional doll curses. European magical practices did sometimes use wax or cloth figures to represent specific individuals. The underlying principle was symbolic connection. What happened to the representation was thought capable of influencing the person. Anthropologists sometimes call this sympathetic magic. Whether anyone ever produced supernatural effects is another matter. The enduring mystery is why representation feels so powerful. Even today, damaging an image of someone can feel emotionally more significant than destroying an ordinary object. Knotted cords appeared in traditions where magic was imagined as something bindable. Knots are ordinary technology. They hold things together and release them when untied. That simple physical action inspired an enormous range of magical ideas. In parts of European folklore, a knot could symbolically bind illness, luck, weather, love, or hostile intention. Sailors were sometimes told that winds could be contained in knotted cords and released later. Other traditions used knots protectively. The logic is easy to understand. If an invisible force behaves like something that can be tied, then a cord becomes a physical model for controlling it. Scholars often view this as a form of sympathetic thinking where symbolic action mirrors the desired result. Believers may interpret the symbolism more literally. They sometimes describe the knot as a focus that holds intention until released. No evidence shows that cords can contain supernatural forces. Yet knot magic remains intriguing because the metaphor crosses so naturally into physical action. A person can literally feel the moment of tightening and release. That makes an abstract idea seem tangible in the hands. Bells were once believed capable of disturbing or driving away harmful forces. The sound of a bell travels farther than the person ringing it. Before modern amplification, that alone could make bells seem unusually powerful. In Christian Europe, church bells were sometimes associated with protection against storms or evil influences. Elsewhere, bells and similar instruments became part of rituals intended to purify spaces or attract beneficial attention. The exact beliefs differed widely. What they shared was the idea that sound could change more than mood. It could affect the unseen environment. Modern acoustics explains how vibration travels through air, but earlier listeners experienced the effect without that framework. A strong bell could be heard across an entire settlement while remaining invisible between tower and ear. That may have encouraged supernatural interpretations. Some esoteric traditions still claim particular tones disrupt negative energies. There is no scientific evidence for that claim in the magical sense. Yet sound undeniably influences human physiology and attention. A sudden chime can interrupt thought instantly. Perhaps that ordinary effect helped create extraordinary beliefs. If sound can break concentration, people once wondered what else it might break. Salt developed a powerful magical reputation because it resisted decay. For much of history, salt was not merely seasoning. It preserved food and helped prevent spoilage at a time when decay could destroy precious supplies quickly. That visible ability to resist corruption naturally encouraged symbolic meanings. Salt became associated with purity, preservation, hospitality, and protection in many traditions. European folklore often places it near doors or around objects believed to require supernatural defense. Some religious practices also use salt without framing it as black magic at all. This overlap is important. Protective customs often traveled between household tradition, religion, and magic. A substance with an obvious physical effect gained imagined spiritual effects as well. Modern chemistry explains exactly why salt can inhibit certain forms of microbial growth. That does not explain every supernatural belief, but it offers a plausible beginning. Some occult practitioners argue that salt possesses additional energetic qualities. No reliable evidence supports those claims. Even so, its reputation remains unusually strong. Few ordinary kitchen ingredients have spent so many centuries standing symbolically between people and whatever they feared might cross the boundary. Iron became a traditional defense against supernatural beings across much of Europe. Old European folklore repeatedly describes iron as something feared by supernatural creatures. Horseshoes became protective symbols. Iron objects were sometimes placed near cradles or entrances. Stories about fairies and other beings often emphasize their supposed dislike of the metal. Several explanations have been proposed. Iron technology once represented a dramatic advance that transformed weapons and agriculture. Blacksmiths themselves occupied a strange cultural position because they controlled fire and turned rock into useful tools. Their craft could appear almost magical. Another possibility is symbolic opposition. As older traditions changed during the Iron Age, the new material may have become associated with human civilization against untamed supernatural forces. None of these theories explains every legend. There is also no evidence that iron repels non-human entities, yet the motif became remarkably persistent. It survived long after iron stopped being rare or mysterious. That persistence suggests folklore can preserve the emotional memory of technological change for centuries. A common nail today may carry the shadow of a time when the material itself seemed extraordinary. Written charms blurred the boundary between prayer and magic for centuries. A small piece of writing could once carry enormous supernatural importance. People folded prayers, sacred names, symbols or short formulas, and wore them close to the body. Others concealed written charms inside homes. The intention might be healing or protection rather than harm. Yet authorities sometimes disagreed about whether such practices were legitimate devotion or forbidden magic. The difference could depend on wording and context. A biblical passage might be accepted when read aloud, but viewed suspiciously when treated as an object possessing power by itself. This tension appears across many periods. Written language had unusual prestige because literacy was limited and sacred texts were revered. A person unable to read a charm could still believe the marks contained protective force. Some occult traditions went further and used unfamiliar alphabets to heighten secrecy. Modern scholars see written charms as evidence that everyday religion was more flexible than official rules suggest. The mysterious part is how easily words can shift roles. The same sentence can be prayer in one hand and magic in another. Some magical manuscripts were deliberately encoded to keep their contents secret. Not every strange alphabet in the occult book was meant to represent a supernatural language. Some writers used substitution systems or invented characters to hide ordinary information from casual readers. This served practical purposes. Magical practice could attract religious suspicion or legal danger. Encoding also increased prestige because a text looked more mysterious when its meaning was not immediately visible. In other cases, unusual scripts were treated as sacred rather than merely secret. The reader might believe the shapes themselves carried symbolic power. Historians have deciphered many such systems by comparing repeated patterns with known alphabets. Others remain uncertain because the surviving material is too limited. This creates fertile ground for speculation. An unreadable passage can invite claims about lost civilizations or non-human languages. Usually, simpler explanations are more plausible, yet the attraction is understandable. A page nobody can easily interpret feels like a locked door. Even when the code eventually reveals ordinary words, the centuries of secrecy surrounding it become part of the mystery. Concealment can make information seem more powerful than its actual contents. The Picatrix linked astrology with an ambitious system of ritual magic. Few medieval occult works are as ambitious as the text known in Latin as the Picatrix. It originated from an Arabic work called Gayat al-Hakim and later circulated in Europe. The book presents a universe saturated with celestial influence. Planets, images, materials, and timing are treated as parts of one connected system. The magician's goal is not simply to cast isolated spells. It is to understand hidden relationships within the cosmos and use them deliberately. To modern readers, the combination can feel like astrology expanded into a complete technology of invisible forces. Historians study the Picatrix as a major transmission point for medieval astrological magic. It also illustrates how knowledge moved between Arabic-speaking and Latin-speaking intellectual worlds. Some modern occultists treat the text as a practical manual. Others read it symbolically. There is no evidence that its celestial procedures produce supernatural results. Yet its intellectual scope remains extraordinary. The Picatrix imagines reality as a vast web where the heavens continually imprint patterns onto earthly life. Necromancy originally described attempts to obtain knowledge from the dead. The modern word necromancy often suggests fictional armies of resurrected bodies. Historically, the idea was usually more focused. Necromancy meant seeking information from the dead or from spirits believed to be associated with them. Ancient literature contains stories of consulting deceased figures for hidden knowledge. Medieval writers later used the term more broadly for forbidden spirit magic. The attraction is easy to understand. The dead were imagined as having crossed a boundary that living people could not see beyond. Perhaps they knew what awaited after death. Perhaps they could reveal secrets hidden from ordinary senses. Religious authorities frequently condemned such attempts because they challenged accepted channels of spiritual authority. Skeptics would say claimed communications came from fraud, suggestion, or altered states. The Believers have offered many competing explanations. Some argue the dead themselves respond. Others think unknown entities imitate them. There is no reliable evidence that necromancy reaches deceased minds. Still, its central promise remains compelling. Death removes access to a person, and necromancy begins with the ancient human wish to reopen that impossible conversation. Medieval necromancers were sometimes educated clerics rather than isolated village sorcerers. One of the most surprising discoveries in the study of medieval magic is the background of some practitioners. Learned ritual texts often required Latin literacy and familiarity with Christian prayers. Those skills were far more common among educated clergy than among the general population. As a result, certain forms of necromancy appear to have circulated among clerics, students, or other literate men. This differs sharply from the familiar image of an isolated witch practicing inherited village magic. These operators worked with manuscripts. They copied formulas and debated technique. Their magic existed close to institutions that officially condemned it. Historians sometimes describe this as clerical necromancy. The contradiction is fascinating. The same education that taught religious doctrine also gave curious individuals access to books and languages that made forbidden experimentation possible. Some may have viewed the rituals as intellectual exploration rather than rebellion. Others may simply have wanted power or information. There is no evidence their operations summoned anything supernatural. Yet the manuscripts reveal that fascination with prohibited knowledge could flourish inside the very structures designed to restrain it. Black mirrors later became famous tools for seeking visions in darkness. A black mirror reflects far less detail than an ordinary mirror. That makes it strangely effective at encouraging the mind to search for patterns. Practitioners of scrying have used dark, polished surfaces for centuries. Although the exact materials and methods vary. The famous Elizabethan scholar John Dee owned a dark reflective object often associated with his attempts to communicate with angels. Modern occult traditions continued using black mirrors as tools for visions. Psychology again offers a compelling explanation. When visual information is reduced, the brain does not simply stop interpreting. It can begin filling gaps. Faces, lights, movement, and imagined scenes may appear during prolonged attention. Someone expecting communication could experience these changes as messages. Occult practitioners sometimes say the mirror does not create images. It merely helps consciousness reach a different mode of perception. That interpretation remains unverified. The object itself contains no demonstrated supernatural property. Yet it exploits something genuinely mysterious. Human perception can generate vivid experiences from very little sensory input. Stare into darkness long enough, and the mind may begin supplying its own world. Certain magical circles were designed as symbolic boundaries against unseen danger. The circle appears constantly in ceremonial magic, but its function is often misunderstood. In many traditions, it was not simply decorative. It marked a protected space where the practitioner believed hostile influences could not easily enter. Names, symbols, or prayers might be written around its boundary. The operator stood inside while attempting contact with whatever lay beyond it. This created a powerful physical metaphor. Safety existed within the line. Uncertainty existed outside. Historians can trace protective circles through multiple magical manuscripts. Their designs changed over time, which suggests there was never one universal form. Popular culture later transformed them into dramatic visual shorthand for summoning. The older logic was often more defensive. Some practitioners believed precise construction mattered greatly. Others treated the circle as a symbolic aid for concentration. Psychologically, boundaries can influence expectation and confidence. A marked space may genuinely feel safer even without supernatural effects. That could have intensified unusual experiences during ritual. The unanswered question is whether the circle protected anything beyond the participant's state of mind. History can document the belief, but not the invisible boundary. Old court records preserve accusations involving curses hidden inside everyday objects. Legal documents from early modern Europe sometimes describe objects discovered in suspicious places. Bundles of hair, pins, cloth, bones, written scraps, or strangely arranged materials could become evidence in accusations of witchcraft. The problem is that an object does not explain itself. Something ordinary may appear sinister when found during a period of fear. Once a household believed it was under magical attack, almost any unexplained item could acquire meaning. Court testimony then preserved that interpretation as though the object had a clear purpose. Historians must therefore read such evidence carefully. Some items probably were used in folk magical practices. Others may have been harmless. A few could even have been planted deliberately during personal disputes. This uncertainty makes the records fascinating rather than useless. They show how physical evidence and belief interacted. People wanted something tangible to explain invisible harm. The discovery of a hidden object provided exactly that. Whether or not it had any magical purpose, it could transform suspicion into certainty and change the fate of everyone involved. Wax images became feared because damage to representations suggested damage at distance. Wax was especially suitable for image magic because it could be shaped easily and altered afterward. A figure could represent a particular person. The practitioner might then heat, pierce, bind, or otherwise transform the image as a symbolic act. Variations appear in different historical settings, including the ancient Mediterranean world and later European traditions. The central idea resembles sympathetic magic. Things that resemble one another are imagined as remaining connected. From a modern scientific perspective, there is no known mechanism allowing damage to a wax figure to injure someone far away. Yet the symbolism is psychologically powerful. Humans respond strongly to representations. We preserve photographs of loved ones and sometimes hesitate to damage images even when we know they are only objects. That emotional response may help explain why image magic felt convincing. If a representation can evoke the person immediately in the mind, perhaps earlier practitioners assumed the connection extended further. Some believers still make that claim. No evidence confirms it, but the idea persists because symbolic resemblance feels more meaningful than ordinary physical coincidence. Graveyards attracted magical legends because they marked the boundary between living and dead. Cemeteries have always been more than storage places for human remains. They are socially charged spaces where memory, religion, grief, and fear meet. That made them natural settings for magical folklore. Some historical traditions treated earth from graves or objects connected with burial places as spiritually significant. Others warned against entering cemeteries under particular conditions. These beliefs were not universal, and many communities considered graveyards sacred rather than sinister. Yet the association with death inevitably encouraged stories about contact across the boundary. A magician seeking information from the dead might be imagined going where the dead were physically closest. Folklore then reinforced itself. The more a place was considered uncanny, the more unusual experiences people expected to have there. Nighttime conditions could intensify that effect through poor visibility and heightened attention. There is no evidence that cemeteries contain greater supernatural activity than other places. Still, they carry powerful cultural expectations. Few settings can make an ordinary sound feel meaningful so quickly. The atmosphere comes from human belief before anything unexplained even occurs. Some curses were written backwards to represent reversal or disruption. Reversing ordinary order is one of the oldest ways of signaling that something unusual is happening. In magical contexts, letters, names, prayers, or phrases were sometimes written backwards. The exact purpose varied. Reversal could represent undoing. It might symbolize turning fortune against an enemy. In other cases, reversed text simply made a formula harder for outsiders to understand. Later folklore gave the practice increasingly sinister associations, especially when sacred language was inverted. That reputation became much stronger through modern horror stories. Historically, backwards writing did not carry one universal meaning. Its power came partly from violation of expectation. We learn written language as a fixed directional system. Turning it around immediately makes the familiar appear wrong. Occult traditions often exploit precisely that feeling. Some believers argue that reversal symbolically redirects an influence toward its source. Skeptics see a dramatic ritual gesture with no external effect. Either way, the method shows how little magic sometimes requires. A normal sentence can become unsettling without changing a single letter. Only the direction needs to change. Hidden objects beneath thresholds reveal how seriously households took magical protection. Archaeologists and building historians have discovered concealed shoes, animal remains, bottles, written charms, and other objects inside old houses. Thresholds are especially important locations. A doorway is physically weak compared with a wall because it is designed to let things pass through. Folklore expanded that practical vulnerability into a supernatural one. If harmful forces were imagined entering a household, the entrance became an obvious place to stop them. Some concealed objects may have served ordinary construction purposes, so interpretation requires caution. Yet repeated patterns suggest that at least some were intentionally protective. These acts were private. A family might never record them in writing. That means archaeology can reveal beliefs that disappeared from official history. The placement matters as much as the object. Protection was built directly into the architecture. Modern occupants can unknowingly step across it thousands of times. There is no proof the hidden items affected anything supernatural. What they certainly affected was confidence. Someone who believed their doorway was protected may have slept differently because of an object nobody else could see. Blood acquired supernatural importance because many cultures associated it with life itself. Blood has an obvious connection with survival. Losing too much of it can be fatal, yet while contained within the body, it remains mostly unseen. That combination gave blood enormous symbolic weight long before anyone understood circulation scientifically. Magical and religious traditions sometimes treated it as a carrier of vitality, identity, or binding power. Folklore later exaggerated these ideas into tales of supernatural beings feeding upon life through blood. Modern entertainment then made blood almost inseparable from fictional black magic. Historical reality was more varied. Many traditions avoided it entirely. Others used symbolic substitutes rather than actual blood. The important point is conceptual. If life appears to leave the body when blood is lost, earlier societies could reasonably imagine that blood itself contained some portion of life. Occult systems sometimes extended that assumption further. They proposed that a personal substance created a stronger connection between a ritual and an individual. Science has found no magical force in blood. Yet biologically, it truly does carry intensely personal information through DNA and other markers. The ancient symbolism accidentally touched something real, though not supernatural. Names were often treated as extensions of the people who carried them. A name is intangible, yet it can represent a person with extraordinary precision. Magical traditions frequently treated that connection as more than linguistic convenience. Knowing someone's true or secret name could supposedly grant influence over them. Protective customs sometimes concealed names for the same reason. Stories about supernatural beings often reverse the pattern. Discovering the being's hidden name gives the human character unexpected power. This theme appears widely because names occupy a peculiar psychological position. Hearing our own name can capture attention even in a noisy room. A name also carries reputation and identity through society when the person is absent. Earlier cultures sometimes turned that obvious social power into literal supernatural power. In ancient Egypt, preserving a name could help preserve existence after death. In later magical systems, writing a target's name could establish symbolic connection. No evidence shows that names transmit occult influence. Yet the underlying intuition remains powerful. If a few sounds can summon someone instantly into the mind, it is easy to understand why people once wondered whether those sounds reached further. Hair and fingernails became magically significant because they remained connected to identity. Human hair and nails are unusual possessions because they come directly from the body yet survive after being removed. Across various magical traditions, such materials became examples of what scholars call contagious magic. The idea holds that something once connected to a person may retain a hidden link afterward. That made discarded personal material potentially valuable for healing charms, protective rites, or hostile spells. Similar beliefs attach to clothing and footprints. The reasoning has an intuitive quality. A lock of hair undeniably belonged to one specific person. Even today, hair can contain biological information that helps identify its source. Historical practitioners knew nothing about genetics, but they still treated bodily traces as uniquely personal. Some modern occultists see that coincidence as evidence that older systems understood more than historians assume. Science does not support the leap from biological identity to supernatural connection. Still, The symbolism is unusually strong. Unlike a written name, hair physically originated from the target. For someone already convinced that personal links mattered, it must have seemed like one of the strongest links available. Dreams were sometimes interpreted as warnings that hostile magic was nearby. Dreams can feel intensely real while they are happening, yet their images arise without obvious external causes. That mystery made them important in magical traditions around the world. A frightening dream might be interpreted as a warning from a spiritual source. Repeated nightmares could suggest that someone was under supernatural attack. In periods when belief in witchcraft was widespread, even ordinary sleep experiences might become evidence. Modern neuroscience links dreams to normal brain activity during sleep, but many details about why particular dreams take shape remain difficult to predict. Stress clearly influences dream content. A person already afraid of a curse may therefore dream about danger more frequently, which can strengthen the original fear. Believers offer the opposite explanation. They suggest anxiety does not create the warning, but makes the sleeper more receptive to it. There is no reliable way to verify that interpretation. Yet dreams remain perfect territory for mystery because the experience is private. A vivid dream can convince the dreamer even when it leaves absolutely no physical evidence for anyone else. Unexplained sleep paralysis once encouraged beliefs about nocturnal supernatural attackers. Sleep paralysis occurs when awareness returns while the body remains temporarily unable to move. The experience can include pressure, sensed presences, strange sounds, or vivid figures. Before the phenomenon was understood medically, those sensations could seem unmistakably supernatural. Different cultures developed their own explanations. Some imagined witches, spirits, or other entities attacking sleepers. The famous image of a nighttime being sitting on someone's chest may partly reflect the feeling of restricted movement and altered breathing. Modern sleep science provides a strong explanation for the basic experience. Dream imagery can continue while waking awareness has already returned. Yet knowing that does not necessarily make an episode feel less uncanny. People sometimes report remarkably similar sensations without sharing the same cultural story. Researchers attribute that similarity to common features of human sleep physiology. More speculative interpretations argue that paralysis might expose consciousness to something normally filtered out. There is no evidence for that possibility. Still, few natural experiences demonstrate more clearly how a completely convincing supernatural encounter can emerge while a person is lying safely in bed. Medieval communities occasionally employed official rituals against feared magical threats. Not every response to suspected sorcery came from secretive folk practitioners. Religious institutions sometimes used formal prayers, blessings, exorcisms, or public ceremonies when communities believed dangerous supernatural forces were present. This created an unusual situation. Authorities might condemn magic while simultaneously agreeing that invisible hostile influence was possible. The disagreement concerned which powers were legitimate and who had authority to confront them. A frightened person therefore lived within a worldview where supernatural attack could be considered real, even by people who rejected magical countermeasures. Modern readers sometimes imagine a simple conflict between skeptical religion and superstitious villagers. Historical reality was more complicated. Different explanations competed inside a broadly supernatural worldview. Church officials might attribute an event to demonic activity rather than witchcraft, but both explanations assumed unseen agency. Skeptics today view these rituals as cultural responses to anxiety or illness. Believers may see them as evidence that older societies took spiritual danger seriously for good reason. The historical records cannot resolve that debate. They reveal only that fear of invisible attack sometimes reached far beyond the private household. Church authorities condemned sorcery while preserving detailed descriptions of forbidden practices. One of history's stranger paradoxes is that opponents of magic helped preserve knowledge about it. Clerics, inquisitors, theologians, and legal officials sometimes recorded alleged rituals in order to identify or condemn them. Their descriptions could then survive long after the original practitioners disappeared. This creates a difficult source problem. An hostile writer may exaggerate what opponents believed. Confessions might have been shaped by interrogation. Rumor could become official testimony. Yet without these documents, entire areas of magical folklore might be lost. Some later occultists even learned about forbidden practices from texts written specifically to attack them. Knowledge therefore moved through opposition as well as transmission. Historians must separate what people actually did from what authorities imagined they did. That distinction is not always possible. The resulting uncertainty feeds modern speculation. Were strange details invented by fearful officials, or did they preserve fragments of genuine underground traditions? The safest answer varies case by case. What remains undeniable is the irony. Attempts to erase forbidden magic sometimes became the reason its stories survived. Some magical texts survived precisely because authorities copied them as evidence. Manuscripts considered dangerous were sometimes confiscated during investigations. Normally, confiscation sounds like the end of a text's history. In practice, legal and religious systems occasionally created records describing or copying suspicious material before destroying, storing, or returning the original. That bureaucratic habit accidentally preserved traces of works that might otherwise have vanished. A copied symbol in a court file can become the only surviving evidence that a local magical tradition existed. This also means modern researchers may encounter occult material through an unfriendly filter. The copyist could misunderstand the original. Spellings might change. Drawings could be simplified. Explanatory context might disappear. Later, readers then face a puzzle created by transmission itself. What did the original practitioner actually possess? How much did the official recorder alter? Occult enthusiasts sometimes treat these fragmentary records as clues to hidden systems. Historians are more cautious because incomplete evidence invites reconstruction. Still, there is something about the process. A government clerk copying forbidden marks centuries ago may have become their most successful guardian without intending to preserve them at all. The infamous Grand Grimoire developed a reputation far darker than its uncertain origins. The Grand Grimoire is one of several books that later generations associated with dangerous ceremonial magic. It is sometimes called the Red Dragon and is often linked in popular accounts with supposed pacts involving powerful infernal figures. Its exact history is much less dramatic than the legend suggests. Surviving editions appear relatively late, and claims of extreme antiquity are difficult to support. That gap between reputation and evidence is part of the fascination. Occult books often gain power culturally by being described as older, rarer, or more forbidden than they actually are. Once a terrifying reputation forms, later publishers may strengthen it because mystery sells. Readers then encounter the book already expecting danger. Some modern practitioners insist that printed versions preserve an older, secret tradition. Historians generally require evidence that has not appeared. The Grand Grimoire therefore becomes a mystery about myth-making as much as magic. Its fearsome identity may have grown gradually through publication, rumor, and repetition. A book does not need ancient origins to acquire an ancient aura. It only needs people who believe the story. Grimoires sometimes invented ancient authors to make their teachings appear more powerful. Pseudonymous authorship was common in many older literary traditions. A writer could attribute a work to a famous ruler, philosopher, saint, or legendary magician in order to give it authority. Magical books embraced this technique enthusiastically. Solomon became an especially popular name because legends already portrayed him as possessing command over supernatural beings. Other texts claimed origins in distant antiquity or exotic locations. Modern readers can mistake these titles for genuine authorship unless manuscript history is examined carefully. The strategy reveals how strongly magical authority depended on age. A newly written spell might seem questionable. The same spell presented as a forgotten secret from an ancient sage felt much more convincing. Some occultists argue that pseudonymous texts can still preserve genuinely old traditions, even if their claimed authors are fictional. That is certainly possible in individual cases, but it must be demonstrated rather than assumed. The broader mystery is psychological. People often trust knowledge more when they believe it survived from a lost past. In occult history, an invented ancestor could become part of the magic itself. Magical alphabets promised secrecy by hiding ordinary words behind mysterious characters. Occult manuscripts contain numerous alphabets made from unfamiliar geometric or symbolic forms. Some were probably simple ciphers. Others carried religious or astrological associations. A practitioner could write an ordinary name in an occult script and immediately transform it into something that looked inaccessible. That appearance mattered. Secrecy protected information from casual readers, but it also created psychological distance from everyday language. A familiar word looked different enough to feel special. Several magical alphabets were copied repeatedly through European esoteric literature. Over time, later writers sometimes forgot their original context and treated the characters as ancient sacred writing. Modern internet culture has accelerated that process. Symbols detached from old manuscripts can acquire completely new explanations within a few years. There is no evidence that the scripts possess supernatural power, yet they demonstrate how strongly appearance influences belief. A sentence becomes more mysterious when the reader cannot pronounce it. Some enthusiasts wonder whether obscure alphabets encode lost teachings that have not been fully recovered. Usually they do not. But every undeciphered symbol leaves enough uncertainty for that possibility to remain attractive. Reversed prayers became feared because familiar sacred language seemed deliberately invertic. Religious language carries meaning partly through repetition and familiarity. Turning that language backwards or altering its order can therefore produce a powerful emotional reaction. Historical accusations of sorcery sometimes involved claims that prayers had been reversed or sacred formulas deliberately distorted. Such actions symbolized opposition to accepted religious order. Whether accused individuals actually performed them is often uncertain. Early modern testimony was shaped by fear and expectation. Later, occult literature adopted inversion more deliberately because forbidden symbolism had become part of its identity. Horror fiction then pushed the idea even further. The result is a modern association between reversed sacred language and black magic that is stronger than many historical sources justify. Psychologically, the effect is easy to understand. A familiar pattern feels safe because we know what comes next. Reverse it, and that certainty disappears. Some occult believers claim inversion redirects spiritual force. No evidence supports that mechanism. Yet symbolic reversal undeniably changes how listeners respond. Something known by heart can become strange without adding a single new word. The discomfort comes entirely from violated expectation. Certain folk traditions believed curses could return to the person who sent them. The idea of magical reversal appears in many forms. A harmful influence may fail, rebound, or return to its origin. This belief serves several purposes at once. It offers reassurance to someone afraid of being cursed. It also creates a moral warning against attempting harm. If supernatural aggression carries the risk of returning, the safest choice is restraint. Different traditions explain the process differently. Some describe deliberate countermagic that reflects the attack. Others present return as an automatic law of spiritual consequences. Modern occult communities sometimes discuss versions of the same idea through concepts of energetic rebound or multiplied consequences. There is no scientific evidence that hostile magical intention travels outward and returns. Yet psychologically, people who expect retaliation may interpret later misfortune through that lens. The belief can therefore become self-reinforcing. Something goes wrong after a hostile ritual, and the setback appears to prove the rule. The larger mystery is why justice so often enters magical thinking. Invisible power is rarely imagined as consequence-free. Even secret actions are expected to leave some kind of trace. Magical countermeasures often focused on identifying the object believed to carry a curse. When people suspected supernatural harm, they frequently searched for a physical carrier. The feared object might be hidden under a doorstep, inside bedding, near an animal enclosure, or somewhere connected with the victim. Finding something unusual could be interpreted as discovering the curse itself. Once located, the object might be removed, destroyed, or taken to a specialist. The procedure gave an invisible problem a visible focus. That can be psychologically powerful. Anxiety becomes easier to manage when it can be attached to something tangible. Historical accounts describe pins, bundles, strange powders, or personal materials treated as possible vehicles of harmful magic. The difficulty is that almost any unfamiliar item can seem suspicious once a person expects to find one. A harmless object may therefore become evidence after the belief already exists. Occult interpretations reverse the logic. They argue that physical objects are chosen precisely because they create a connection with place or person. Science has not verified that claim. Yet across history, the search for a hidden carrier repeatedly transformed vague fear into a concrete investigation. Haunted objects and cursed objects became difficult to distinguish in popular folklore. A haunted object is usually imagined as containing or attracting a presence. A cursed object supposedly causes misfortune through a harmful influence. In actual folklore, those categories often blur. A possession linked to a dead person might acquire a reputation for causing strange events. An object connected with repeated accidents might later be described as inhabited. The explanation can shift while the story remains the same. This flexibility helps cursed object legends survive because almost any unusual event can be absorbed into the narrative. A noise suggests haunting. Bad luck suggests a curse. A disturbing dream can support either interpretation. Museums and private collections occasionally advertise allegedly cursed items because the stories themselves attract attention. Skeptics point out that dramatic claims usually grow through retelling. Believers sometimes argue that objects can retain emotional or spiritual impressions from past owners. There is no established evidence for such retention. Still, people form powerful relationships with possessions. An inherited object can feel connected to someone long after their death. Folklore takes that genuine emotional connection and asks whether something else might remain attached as well. Some historical trials turned ordinary household accidents into evidence of supernatural interference. A broken tool, spoiled food, sick animal, or sudden fall could become far more significant during periods of witchcraft panic. Human beings naturally look for causes. When several misfortunes occur close together, coincidence can feel inadequate. Historical trial records show how ordinary events were sometimes woven into narratives of deliberate supernatural attack. A disagreement with a neighbor might come first. Later, something goes wrong. The earlier conflict then appears to explain the later accident. Once suspicion forms, additional incidents reinforce it. Modern psychology recognizes this tendency as pattern-seeking and confirmation bias. Yet those concepts were unavailable to many historical communities. Sorcery offered an established causal model that made confusing events understandable. Some modern believers would argue that not every case can be dismissed so easily. Perhaps a genuine, unexplained event occasionally sat inside the larger pattern of false accusations. That possibility cannot be ruled out in a philosophical sense, but no historical trial has demonstrated supernatural causation. The deeper mystery is how quickly chance becomes intention when people desperately need an explanation. Animal behavior was once interpreted as a possible sign of nearby sorcery. Animals notice sounds, scents, and movements that humans miss. That ordinary fact made their behavior easy to interpret supernaturally. A dog barking at an apparently empty doorway might seem to detect an invisible presence. Livestock becoming restless at an unusual hour could be blamed on hostile magic. In witchcraft accusations, animals sometimes appeared as witnesses in everything except name. Their reactions were treated as signs that something unnatural had entered the environment. Modern biology provides many possible explanations. Hearing ranges differ between species. Smell can reveal distant animals or weather changes. Small movements hidden from human attention may be obvious to a cat or horse. Still, the belief remains attractive because animals cannot explain what they perceive. Their silence leaves room for imagination. Some paranormal enthusiasts argue that animals may detect forms of energy or presence outside normal human sensitivity. No reliable evidence confirms that idea. Yet almost anyone who has watched a pet stare intently at an apparently empty corner understands why the interpretation survives. Unexplained animal attention feels like evidence without an explanation attached. Sudden bad luck could transform coincidence into a convincing story of enchantment. One unfortunate event rarely proves anything. Several unfortunate events close together can feel completely different. A person loses money, becomes ill, and experiences a household accident within a short period. Statistically, clusters happen. Emotionally, they can look designed. Historical beliefs about black magic offered a ready explanation for that pattern. If someone had recently made an enemy, the story became even more convincing. The human mind is exceptionally good at connecting events after they happen. This skill helps us recognize real causes, but it also creates false connections. Once a curse is suspected, neutral events can be reinterpreted as further evidence. Some occult thinkers argue that extreme coincidence might occasionally indicate a genuine hidden influence. They point to sequences that seem too precise to dismiss. Probability specialists warn that enormous numbers of daily events make surprising clusters inevitable. The argument rarely ends because the same evidence supports different intuitions. But magic thrives inside that gap. Misfortune does not need to be impossible. It only needs to arrive in an order that feels personally meaningful. The evil eye became one of the world's most widespread supernatural fears. Across the Mediterranean, Middle East, South Asia, and other regions, traditions developed around the belief that a harmful gaze could bring misfortune. The details vary significantly between cultures, so there is no single universal evil eye doctrine. Yet the recurring idea is striking. Envy is often central. Someone admires a child, animal, possession, or success too intensely, and the attention itself becomes dangerous. Protective amulets emerged in many places to guard against that possibility. Historians connect the belief with social anxieties surrounding jealousy and vulnerability. Public success can attract resentment. The evil eye turns that invisible social tension into a supernatural mechanism. Some people insist the effect can happen unintentionally, which makes the fear even more unsettling. Science has found no evidence that a gaze transmits harmful energy. Still, attention does change human behavior. Feeling watched can increase stress and self-consciousness. The ancient belief takes that ordinary psychological reality one step further. Perhaps the eyes do more than observe. Perhaps intention can somehow travel through the act of seeing. Protective amulets developed partly from anxiety that harmful intentions could travel invisibly. An amulet is portable reassurance. It allows protection to remain close even when a person leaves the safety of home. Across history, people have worn symbols, stones, written charms, metals, and crafted objects believed to guard against hostile forces. Their designs differ enormously, but the underlying problem is similar. How do you defend yourself from a danger you cannot see? A physical object offers a constant answer. It may represent divine protection or act as a barrier against envy. It can also remind the wearer that precautions have already been taken. That psychological effect is real even if the supernatural mechanism is not. Archaeologists often find amulets in graves, which suggests protection was sometimes imagined as continuing beyond death. Modern jewelry still carries ancient protective symbols, even when buyers treat them mainly as decoration. Some occult believers argue that repeated use gives certain symbols accumulated power. Historians see cultural transmission instead. Either way, the object becomes larger than its material. A small piece of metal can carry centuries of expectation wherever it goes. Spoken curses were feared because words themselves were thought to alter reality. Words clearly have power in ordinary life. A promise can change a relationship. A verdict can change someone's legal status. An insult can provoke consequences long after the sound disappears. Magical traditions extend that familiar power into the supernatural realm. A curse spoken with sufficient intention was sometimes believed capable of affecting events directly. This idea appears in ancient literature and survives in modern folklore. The words might be formal and ritualized, but spontaneous angry statements could also become frightening if misfortune followed later. Psychologically, hearing a curse can alter behavior immediately. The target may become anxious, watchful, and more likely to notice setbacks. That creates a pathway through which words genuinely produce effects without any supernatural force. Believers argue that this does not exclude an additional influence. Perhaps language focuses intention in ways science has not measured. No evidence supports that claim. Yet spoken magic remains intuitively compelling because words already shape reality socially. The mystery begins when people ask whether that power ends at the boundaries we normally assume. Silence became important in magic because secrecy was believed to preserve power. Many magical traditions warn practitioners against discussing rituals too freely. Silence may protect knowledge from outsiders, but some systems give it a deeper purpose. Speaking about an operation supposedly weakens it. Revealing an intention may scatter concentration or expose the work to interference. Similar ideas appear in non-magical settings. Keeping a personal goal private can sometimes feel more serious than announcing it. Secrecy also creates exclusivity. Information known only to initiates seems more valuable because access is restricted. Historians see this as a major reason occult traditions developed layers of initiation and coded language. Believers often interpret silence as an active component of the practice itself. No supernatural effect has been established. Yet secrecy undeniably changes psychology. It heightens attention and separates the ritual from ordinary conversation. It also makes verification nearly impossible. If successful practitioners are expected to remain silent, then the absence of testimony becomes compatible with belief. That gives magical traditions unusual resilience. Silence stops being a lack of evidence. Inside the tradition, it can become evidence that the rule is being followed. Moon phases influenced when some practitioners believed magical actions were strongest. The moon visibly changes from night to night. Before artificial lighting, those changes affected nighttime brightness in obvious ways. It is unsurprising that cultures connected lunar phases with timing. Magical traditions often assigned growing influence to the waxing moon and diminishing influence to the waning moon. The exact rules varied. Some operations were timed around the full moon, while others deliberately avoided it. Astrology added further layers by considering lunar position against the zodiac. Modern science confirms that the moon strongly influences ocean tides, but there is no evidence that lunar phases amplify magical intention. Even widely repeated claims about full moons dramatically changing human behavior have produced inconsistent support. Yet the symbolism remains powerful because the cycle is visible. A ritual tied to the moon gains a natural clock in the sky. Occultists sometimes argue that biological systems could respond to subtle lunar rhythms not yet understood. That possibility is occasionally explored scientifically in limited contexts, but it does not establish magical effects. The mystery survives because the moon genuinely affects Earth, while inviting speculation about where that influence ends. Saturn became associated with darker occult themes in several astrological traditions. Traditional astrology gave each visible planet a personality. Saturn received one of the most complicated. Because it moved slowly across the sky, it became associated with limitation, age, time, hardship, and endings in various astrological systems. Those qualities later made it attractive to occult traditions exploring themes that modern audiences might label dark. Yet Saturn was not simply evil. It could also represent discipline, endurance, structure, and wisdom gained through difficulty. Popular culture often strips away that nuance and keeps only the sinister associations. Historical magical texts sometimes connected Saturn with particular metals, colors, days, or symbolic operations. These correspondences formed part of a larger worldview where planets expressed qualities throughout nature. Astronomy now understands Saturn as a physical world with rings and moons, rather than a source of occult influence. Still, its ancient reputation survived the scientific revolution. Some modern conspiracy theories even place Saturn at the center of elaborate hidden symbolism. Evidence for those claims is weak. Their popularity shows how an astrological personality assigned thousands of years ago can continue generating new mysteries today. Eclipses inspired fears that ordinary supernatural protections might temporarily weaken. An eclipse transforms the sky in a way that would have been terrifying before its mechanics were predictable. Daylight can fade unexpectedly. The sun or moon appears to be consumed. Animals may change behavior as the environment darkens. Many cultures developed myths explaining the event, and some connected eclipses with danger, political change, or supernatural instability. Magical traditions occasionally treated these periods as unusual windows when normal influences shifted. That did not always mean the eclipse was considered evil. Some practitioners saw it as powerful rather than simply threatening. Modern astronomy predicts eclipses with extraordinary precision, leaving no doubt about their physical cause. Yet understanding the mechanism does not erase the experience. A total solar eclipse still changes familiar daylight in minutes. For earlier observers, such an event could make the entire cosmic order appear temporarily uncertain. Occult speculation builds on that emotional force. If ordinary celestial patterns affect ritual timing, an extraordinary alignment might seem even more significant. There is no evidence that eclipses weaken supernatural protections. They do demonstrate how quickly the normal sky can become strange. Some magical traditions treated shadows as mysterious extensions of the human self. A shadow follows every movement but has no substance. It changes size dramatically while remaining unmistakably connected to its owner. Those qualities encouraged supernatural interpretations. Folklore from different regions sometimes treats shadows as linked with vitality, spirit, or personal identity. Losing a shadow can symbolize something deeply wrong. Capturing or stepping on one may acquire magical meaning. These ideas do not form one global tradition, but they share an intuitive foundation. A shadow belongs to you without being part of your body. That makes it a natural candidate for sympathetic magic. Modern physics explains shadows simply as areas where light is blocked. Yet psychological responses remain interesting. Human beings detect figures from shadows almost automatically, especially in low light. A moving shadow can trigger attention before we identify its source. Some occult thinkers suggest that ancient people recognized a subtler connection between person and shadow. No evidence supports that claim. Still, the symbolism persists because a shadow behaves like a silent companion. It disappears in darkness, returns with light, and never needs to be taught how to follow. Footprints became targets for magic because they were thought to preserve personal traces. A footprint is temporary evidence that someone occupied a precise place. Long before forensic science, people recognized that tracks could identify direction and sometimes individual movement. Magical traditions in various regions extended that connection. Material taken from a footprint might be used in sympathetic practices aimed at the person who made it. The exact beliefs differed considerably. Some forms sought harm. Others attempted influence or protection. The logic resembles ideas about hair and clothing, but footprints add something unique. They connect a person not only to an object, but to a location. Someone has literally pressed their body weight into the ground. Modern tracking confirms that footprints contain real information. Their shape can suggest footwear and movement. Occult belief imagines an additional invisible residue. No scientific evidence supports that extension. Yet the basic intuition is ancient and understandable. A footprint feels personal because nobody needed to write a name beside it. The body created the mark directly. For a practitioner who believed traces retained connection, the ground itself could briefly become a record of someone's presence. Thresholds attracted magical beliefs because every entrance also represented a vulnerable boundary. Doors are practical boundaries. They decide who enters a private space and who remains outside. Magical belief turned that physical function into a supernatural one. Protective signs were scratched near entrances. Objects were concealed beneath doorways. Particular plants or metals might be placed nearby. The aim was often to prevent harmful influences from crossing into the home. Thresholds also appeared in rites marking major transitions, because stepping across them symbolized movement from one condition to another. Folklorists frequently describe such spaces as liminal. The concept sounds academic, but the experience is ordinary. A doorway is never fully inside or outside. It sits between the two. Supernatural traditions repeatedly assign significance to places that resist simple categories. Windows, gates, bridges, and crossroads attract similar stories. There is no evidence that unseen entities obey architectural boundaries. Yet humans do. We feel differently after locking a door, even though the room itself has not changed. Magical protections may have magnified that sense of separation. The threshold became the point where safety could be imagined as beginning. The number 13 gained the cult associations long after many magical traditions had formed. 13 now carries such a strong reputation that buildings sometimes omit it from floor numbers. Yet its association with bad luck is not a universal ancient truth. Different explanations have been proposed, including religious stories and older attitudes toward numbers beyond 12. 12 already appears frequently in calendars, zodiac systems, and traditional groupings. 13 therefore feels like a step outside an established order. That may have helped later superstition. Occult literature and popular culture eventually absorbed the number into broader ideas about witchcraft and forbidden practice. Friday the 13th strengthened the association further in modern entertainment. Historians caution against claims that every ancient culture feared 13. Many did not. Some considered it neutral or even meaningful in positive ways. This makes the number a good example of how magical symbolism can be constructed gradually. Once enough stories accumulate, the association begins to look timeless. Some people still feel uneasy about 13 despite knowing there is no rational danger. Belief does not always require conviction. Sometimes repeated cultural suggestion is enough to leave a faint emotional trace. Black candles became symbols of banishing long before popular culture simplified their meaning. Modern films often use a black candle as instant visual shorthand for sinister magic. Historical and contemporary occult traditions give the color more varied meanings. Black may represent endings, protection, absorption, concealment, or the removal of unwanted influence. In some systems, a black candle is used to banish rather than attract something harmful. That is almost the reverse of its cinematic reputation. Color symbolism changes between traditions, so there is no universal code. Commercial occult books later standardized many correspondences for convenience, which can make recent conventions look ancient. The candle itself also carries obvious psychological power. A small flame holds attention effortlessly. Lowering surrounding light changes the atmosphere and encourages concentration. Modern science can explain those effects without invoking magic. Practitioners may argue that intention and symbolism add another layer. That remains a matter of belief. The important mystery is cultural. How did one color become so strongly associated with forbidden practice that viewers understand the message immediately? The answer seems to involve centuries of symbolism compressed into a single familiar image. The color black has represented protection as often as danger in magical symbolism. Black absorbs visible light more strongly than pale colors, which gives it an obvious association with darkness. Popular culture turns that into a simple equation between blackness and evil. Historical symbolism is far less consistent. In magical traditions, black can represent secrecy or mourning. It can also symbolize protection by absorbing or containing unwanted influence. Some modern practitioners use black objects specifically for defensive purposes. This illustrates a broader problem with the term black magic itself. Color language encourages moral categories that rarely match the complexity of actual traditions. Practices called dark by outsiders may be considered protective by participants. Meanwhile, actions performed with bright or sacred symbols could still be intended to harm someone. No color possesses inherent magical properties. Yet color strongly affects emotion and expectation. Black can feel forlorn, threatening, protective, or comforting, depending on context. Occult symbolism builds on those reactions. The same candle that looks sinister in a film may represent cleansing to a practitioner. Meaning does not sit inside the color alone. It comes from the story people place around it. Ravens entered occult folklore because intelligence and scavenging made them deeply mysterious. Ravens are unusually intelligent birds. They solve problems, remember individuals, and communicate in complex ways. They also feed on carrion, which historically brought them into places associated with death. That combination made them powerful supernatural symbols. A bird that seemed observant and appeared near the dead could easily be imagined as carrying knowledge unavailable to humans. Norse mythology famously links Odin with ravens. Other traditions developed different associations, so there is no single occult meaning. Later, European folklore and Gothic literature strengthened their connection with darkness and prophecy. Modern biology explains raven behavior through remarkable cognition rather than supernatural ability. Yet the real behavior is strange enough to keep the older symbolism alive. Ravens can play, imitate sounds, and appear to plan actions. People encountering them without scientific context may have reasonably concluded that these birds understood far more than ordinary animals. Some paranormal stories still claim ravens appear before important events. Evidence for prediction is anecdotal. The bird's intelligence, however, is not. Folklore began with an animal that genuinely does seem to be watching. Owls became supernatural symbols partly because humans rarely saw their nighttime behavior. Owls spend much of their active lives in darkness. They fly with remarkable quietness and can turn their heads far beyond the comfortable range of humans. Their large, forward-facing eyes give them an intense appearance. In pre-modern communities, many people heard owls more often than they saw them clearly. That combination encouraged supernatural stories. Some cultures treated owls as symbols of wisdom. Others connected them with death, witchcraft, or warning. These meanings vary too widely to combine into one universal tradition. What matters is the animal's unusual sensory world. An owl can detect prey under conditions where humans see almost nothing. To someone without modern knowledge of nocturnal adaptations, that ability could appear uncanny. Occult folklore sometimes imagines owls as companions or messengers of hidden powers. There is no evidence for such roles beyond cultural belief. Still, an owl demonstrates why supernatural symbolism often attaches to real biological extremes. The bird genuinely operates where human senses become unreliable. Every nighttime encounter therefore begins with an advantage on the owl's side. Cats were linked with witchcraft through folklore rather than any consistent magical doctrine. The association between cats and witches feels ancient and universal, but the historical picture is much messier. In parts of early modern Europe, accusations sometimes described witches with animal companions called familiars. Cats appeared in some accounts, but so did dogs, birds, toads, and other creatures. The black cat became especially dominant much later through folklore, literature, and popular imagery. Cats were well suited to the role. They move silently. Their eyes reflect light. They hunt at night and often seem independent of human instruction. None of this is supernatural, but it created an ideal personality for magical stories. Different cultures have also viewed cats positively. Ancient Egyptian attitudes are the most famous example, although modern retellings sometimes oversimplify them. There is no coherent historical doctrine claiming cats possess occult power. The connection grew through repeated storytelling. Yet it became so strong that a simple silhouette can now communicate witchcraft instantly. That is a different kind of magic. Centuries of cultural repetition transformed an ordinary domestic animal into one of the world's most recognizable supernatural symbols. Toads acquired sinister reputations after appearing repeatedly in European witchcraft accusations. Toads occupy an awkward place in human imagination. Their textured skin and nocturnal habits made them appear strange to people who knew little about amphibian biology. Early modern witchcraft testimony sometimes described toads as familiars or magical tools. Such accounts helped build a sinister reputation that later folklore repeated. Some writers also exaggerated the toxicity of toads and connected them with poisonous mixtures. In reality, certain species produce defensive secretions, but the biology has nothing to do with sorcery. The witchcraft association probably grew from several influences rather than one source. Toads were common around damp rural environments. They looked unusual. They emerged unexpectedly after rain. Those traits made them memorable characters in supernatural stories. Historians warn that trial testimony cannot always be treated as accurate description because witnesses operated within existing folklore. Once people expected witches to use toads, new accusations could reproduce the same detail. The animal became evidence because the story already existed. Modern occult imagery still preserves that inheritance. A harmless amphibian acquired centuries of menace largely because human culture kept assigning it a role. Mandrake legends grew from a root whose human-like shape encouraged extraordinary beliefs. Mandrake roots sometimes divide into forms that vaguely resemble arms and legs. That simple resemblance produced an astonishing body of folklore. Medieval and early modern stories claimed the plant had mysterious powers. One famous legend said it screamed when pulled from the ground, with dangerous consequences for anyone who heard it. Complex harvesting stories developed around avoiding that imagined danger. The real plant contains biologically active compounds that can produce significant effects, which may have strengthened its reputation. Yet many popular stories are clearly legendary rather than botanical observation. Human beings naturally see familiar shapes in random forms. A root that resembles a tiny person invites the idea that it contains unusual life. Traders could even carve roots to enhance the resemblance, making the legend appear more convincing. Occult traditions later treated mandrake as an important magical plant. Science explains its chemistry, but not the cultural imagination surrounding it. The mystery is not whether mandrakes scream. They do not. The fascinating question is how a strangely shaped root became one of Europe's most famous supernatural plants. Certain plants became feared because medicine and poison once existed dangerously close together. Before standardized dosing, the difference between healing and poisoning could be frighteningly small. Plants used in traditional medicine might contain compounds capable of producing confusion, sleepiness, pain relief, or severe illness depending on preparation and amount. That uncertainty fed magical reputations. If a plant altered consciousness, people could interpret the resulting experience through a supernatural framework. If someone became sick after consuming an unknown mixture, sorcery might be suspected. Historical witchcraft literature frequently exaggerates or sensationalizes the role of unusual plants, so specific claims require care. Modern pharmacology confirms that some species associated with folklore genuinely contain powerful chemicals. This does not prove magical traditions understood them scientifically. It does show that certain legendary effects may have begun with real physiological reactions. Occult believers sometimes argue that altered states opened perception to hidden realities. Neuroscience generally interprets them as effects on the brain. The experience itself could still be extraordinary. A pre-modern person encountering a potent plant without any chemical explanation might reasonably conclude that the boundary between medicine and magic was much thinner than we imagine. Forest clearings gained occult reputations as places supposedly hidden from ordinary society. European stories about secret gatherings often place them outside settlements. Forest clearings were ideal settings because they offered privacy while remaining close enough to reach on foot. During periods of witchcraft fear, rumors described nighttime assemblies beyond the view of respectable society. Historians debate how much such testimony reflected real gatherings, dreams, folklore, or interrogation shaped by expectation. There is little evidence for the enormous organized conspiracies imagined by some authorities. Yet isolated meetings certainly occurred for ordinary social reasons, and secrecy itself could invite suspicion. The forest also changed human perception. Familiar landmarks disappeared at night. Sounds traveled unpredictably. Someone following a narrow path could lose direction quickly. Those conditions encouraged stories of places where normal rules weakened. Modern occult groups sometimes deliberately choose natural settings because separation from everyday surroundings heightens ritual focus. That psychological effect is easy to understand. Whether anything supernatural occurs is another question. The clearing becomes powerful partly because it sits outside routine observation. Mystery thrives wherever ordinary society cannot easily see what people are doing. Mountains sometimes became associated with secret gatherings of witches and spirits. Certain European mountains accumulated extraordinary supernatural reputations. The Brocken in Germany became especially famous through traditions surrounding Walpurgis Night. Stories imagined witches gathering there, although literary works later strengthened the association enormously. Other mountainous regions developed their own legends about spirits or forbidden assemblies. Geography contributed to the effect. High places are physically difficult to reach. Weather changes quickly. Clouds can surround a summit, while valleys remain clear. Before modern travel, remote peaks belonged to a world most people rarely entered. Folklore filled that distance with possibilities. Historians generally see large supernatural gatherings as legend rather than documented reality. Yet mountains naturally amplify mystery because visibility and sound behave unpredictably. A distant fire may seem closer than it is. Echoes can make voices difficult to locate. Modern visitors who know the science can still find these effects disorienting. Occult traditions sometimes treat elevated places as symbolically closer to celestial forces. There is no evidence that altitude increases magical power. It certainly changes perspective. From a summit, the ordinary human world looks smaller, and imagination gains more room. Remote caves were imagined as entrances to concealed supernatural worlds. A cave begins as an opening in familiar ground and then continues into darkness. That physical transition has inspired supernatural interpretations for thousands of years. Myths from many cultures place spirits, gods, dead ancestors, or hidden beings beneath the earth. Later, magical folklore sometimes treats caves as sites of secret knowledge or concealed rituals. The reason may be straightforward. Before modern lighting and mapping, caves were genuinely dangerous, unknown environments. Their passages could continue farther than expected. Underground water produced sounds without visible sources. Air currents moved through cracks that could not be seen. Strange mineral formations seemed unlike anything on the surface. A person entering deeply enough temporarily left the normal world behind. Archaeology confirms that some caves had religious or ceremonial uses, although each site must be interpreted separately. More speculative traditions describe underground civilizations or gateways to other realms. Evidence for such claims is lacking. Still, caves preserve the emotional architecture of a portal. One step inside changes temperature and light. The landscape itself creates the sensation of crossing into somewhere hidden. Wells attracted magical customs because their unseen depths suggested access to hidden forces. A traditional well connects daily life with an invisible world beneath the ground. People depended on it for water while seeing only a dark opening leading downward. That combination encouraged sacred and magical associations. Coins, pins, cloth, and other objects were sometimes deposited in wells or springs as offerings. Some locations gained reputations for healing. Others became places for divination or wish-making. The modern custom of throwing a coin into water may preserve distant echoes of older practices, although traditions changed greatly over time. Wells also appear in darker folklore because anything placed inside can disappear from sight. Archaeologists must be cautious when interpreting deposits, since ordinary loss and disposal can resemble ritual activity. Yet some patterns strongly suggest deliberate offerings. Occult speculation sometimes imagines water as a medium that stores intention or memory. Scientific claims of that kind remain unsupported. The historical symbolism requires no exotic mechanism. Water already felt mysterious because it emerged from hidden underground sources. A well provided access to that invisible system. People naturally wondered whether something else might be listening below. Springs were sometimes credited with powers that later became labeled suspicious or forbidden. Natural springs often become culturally important because clean water appears directly from the earth. Before modern infrastructure, such a source could support an entire community. Some springs acquired reputations for healing particular illnesses or granting other benefits. Religious authorities occasionally adopted these sites by associating them with saints or sacred stories. In other cases, older customs survived at the edges of official approval. This creates a fascinating overlap between folk belief and formal religion. A practice might be accepted under one interpretation and condemned as superstition under another. Occult writers later treated some sacred springs as remnants of ancient magical traditions. That is plausible in certain cases, but difficult to prove broadly because local customs change over centuries. Modern geology explains how groundwater reaches the surface. It does not automatically explain why one spring acquires a legend while another remains ordinary. Mineral content may contribute to genuine effects in some places. Reputation does the rest. Once people expect a location to be special, every recovery becomes part of its story. The water keeps flowing while explanations gather around it. Storms were blamed on magic when weather arrived with frightening suddenness. Before meteorology, violent weather could seem almost personal. A clear sky might darken rapidly. Crops could be destroyed in minutes. Lightning struck particular buildings while leaving others untouched. Communities sometimes interpreted such events as supernatural attacks. European witchcraft accusations occasionally included claims that someone had raised storms or damaged fields through magic. Authorities also performed religious ceremonies intended to protect against severe weather. Modern atmospheric science explains thunderstorm development in remarkable detail, but even today, local weather can surprise people. In earlier centuries, the unpredictability was far greater. A suspected witch, who had recently argued with a farmer, might become an easy explanation when hail destroyed that farmer's crop. Some occult traditions still claim consciousness can influence weather. Controlled evidence for that claim is absent. Yet, weather remains psychologically perfect for magical thinking because it is powerful and partly uncontrollable. Humans desperately want causes for destruction. When the sky itself seems to turn against a community, an intentional enemy can feel easier to understand than in different atmospheric conditions. Magic converted chaos into motive. Sailors once feared witches could sell winds trapped inside specially tied knots. Maritime folklore contains a wonderfully strange idea. A sailor could supposedly purchase a cord containing several knots, with each knot holding a different strength of wind. Loosening one released a breeze. Opening too many risked dangerous weather. Versions of this belief appeared in Northern European traditions and became part of later folklore about witches controlling the sea. The story combines two powerful uncertainties. Wind is invisible, and knots make invisible restraint feel physical. Sailors depended completely on wind before modern engines. A calm could delay a voyage for days. A sudden gale could threaten everyone aboard. Any tradition promising even symbolic control over that uncertainty would be compelling. Historians cannot confirm that such wind selling operated exactly as later stories describe. Folklore changes dramatically through retelling. Still, the concept survived because it makes intuitive, magical sense. Something unseen is tied into something visible. Modern meteorology says a cord cannot contain moving air in any meaningful way. Yet the image remains memorable because sailors truly lived at the mercy of a force they could feel but never see. Farmers sometimes attributed crop failures to sorcery when no natural cause seemed obvious. Agricultural communities depended on conditions they could only partly control. Rainfall, insects, plant disease, temperature, and soil quality could determine whether a family had enough food. When a crop failed unexpectedly, the cause was not always visible. Sorcery offered one possible explanation. Historical accusations sometimes claimed that a hostile neighbor had damaged fields through supernatural means. These stories often emerged where social tension already existed. Someone considered quarrelsome or envious could become suspicious after misfortune. Modern agricultural science can explain many patterns that once seemed mysterious, including fungal disease and nutrient deficiency. Yet even experts today occasionally need laboratory testing to identify a problem. Earlier farmers had far fewer tools. The belief in magical attack therefore developed inside genuine uncertainty. Some modern spiritual traditions still talk about harmful intention affecting living systems. Controlled evidence does not support such claims. The broader pattern is more revealing. Whenever survival depends on forces people cannot see clearly, supernatural explanations become attractive. A failed harvest was not merely inconvenient. It threatened the future, which made the search for a cause emotionally urgent. Milk and butter became central to witchcraft accusations in livestock-dependent communities. In many rural European households, dairy production represented daily wealth. A cow that stopped giving milk or cream that refused to turn into butter created immediate concern. Folk belief sometimes explained these failures through magical theft. A witch was said to divert another household's milk or steal the hidden goodness required for butter to form. To modern ears, the accusation sounds strange. Historically, the stakes were practical. Dairy problems could reduce food and income. The scientific causes were also difficult to recognize. Animal illness, diet, temperature, contamination, and processing technique all affected results. If a neighbor's dairy prospered while yours failed, jealousy could turn into suspicion. Trial records preserve stories where ordinary production problems became evidence of supernatural interference. Some folkloric remedies attempted to identify or repel the supposed thief. There is no evidence that magical transfer occurred. Yet the stories reveal how witchcraft beliefs attached themselves to economic pressure. Black magic was not always imagined as dramatic ceremonial ritual. Sometimes it was feared as the unseen reason yesterday's cream suddenly would not become butter. Some accused witches were believed capable of stealing another household's prosperity. One recurring idea in European folk belief was that prosperity could be transferred rather than merely destroyed. A household's milk, grain, luck, or success might mysteriously diminish, while a neighbor seemed to flourish. Instead of treating those events as separate, people could imagine a hidden exchange. The suspected witch had not simply caused harm. They had somehow redirected abundance toward themselves. This belief gave envy a supernatural mechanism. It also made economic inequality emotionally legible. If one farm prospered during a difficult season, others might ask why. Modern economics and agriculture offer many ordinary explanations, but historical communities lacked access to much of that information. Accusations often emerged from existing tensions over charity, property, or reputation. Some modern occult traditions retain the idea that luck or opportunity can be energetically drawn away from another person. There is no evidence for such transfer. Still, The concept is psychologically revealing. People find random inequality uncomfortable. A magical theft story turns unfairness into intention. Someone must have taken what should have been yours. The invisible economy suddenly has a culprit. Magical theft stories often describe wealth moving without any visible physical transfer. Ordinary theft leaves a missing object. Magical theft is stranger because the object may still be present while its value seems to disappear. Folklore describes cows that still exist but produce less milk, fields that remain planted but yield poorly, or businesses that lose customers while a rival thrives. The supposed thief acquires prosperity without physically removing anything. This idea appears in different forms because it solves a narrative problem. Misfortune often has no obvious offender. By imagining value as an invisible substance that can be redirected, folklore creates a mechanism. Modern people sometimes use surprisingly similar language when they talk about someone draining luck or energy. The metaphor remains intuitive even outside literal magical belief. Occult interpretations take it seriously and suggest success may involve transferable forces. Science has not found such forces. Social influence, market competition, health, and chance explain much without them. Yet the story persists because prosperity already feels partly invisible. Wealth depends on opportunity and timing as much as physical possession. Magical theft gives those intangible advantages a supernatural form that can be pictured even when it cannot be seen. Secret societies became linked with black magic through rumor more often than evidence. Organizations that restrict membership naturally attract speculation from outsiders. When rituals or internal symbols are private, imagination fills the gaps. Freemasons, occult orders, political groups, and elite clubs have all been accused at various times of practicing forbidden magic. The evidence there is from misunderstood ceremony to complete invention. Some secretive organizations genuinely studied esoteric philosophy. Others had little connection with occult practice at all. Conspiracy stories often combine them because secrecy itself becomes suspicious. If a group refuses to explain everything publicly, believers may treat the silence as confirmation. Historians face a tricky problem because real secrecy and imaginary secrecy can coexist. An organization may conceal ordinary internal matters, while outsiders invent extraordinary ones. Modern internet culture multiplies these interpretations rapidly. A symbol photographed at a private event can generate thousands of claims without context. Some people argue that the most powerful occult groups would deliberately avoid leaving evidence. That idea is difficult to test because absence becomes proof of successful concealment. The deeper mystery is sociological. Humans often assume hidden gatherings must contain hidden intentions. Occult revivalists revived forgotten magical texts during the 19th century. The 19th century produced an enormous renewed interest in ceremonial magic. Older manuscripts were translated, printed, reorganized, and placed into new systems. Groups such as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn drew from Renaissance occultism, Kabbalistic ideas, astrology, and other sources. This revival shaped much of what modern audiences now recognize as Western ceremonial magic. The process was not simple preservation. Revivalists interpreted old material through their own assumptions. They created new correspondences and sometimes treated recent reconstructions as ancient traditions. That does not make the movement unimportant. It makes it historically fascinating. A fragmented manuscript tradition became a living occult culture again through active reconstruction. Some modern practitioners believe the revival recovered techniques that had nearly vanished. Historians point out that adaptation was extensive. Both can be true in different senses. Old material genuinely returned, but it returned changed. The 19th century therefore acts like a bridge between grimoires copied by hand and modern occult books sold commercially. Much of today's supposed ancient magic passed through that bridge first. Victorian spiritualism sometimes crossed into practices critics called dangerous occult experimentation. Spiritualism became enormously popular during the 19th century. Mediums claimed to communicate with the dead through seances, automatic writing, table movements, and other phenomena. Many participants viewed these practices as religious or scientific investigation rather than black magic. Critics disagreed. Some religious authorities considered spirit contact dangerous. Occult groups also adopted techniques from spiritualist circles while developing different theories about what was being contacted. Fraud was common enough to produce spectacular exposures, yet sincere belief remained widespread. The interesting question concerns the experiences that convinced intelligent observers even when no obvious trick was discovered. Psychology can explain many through suggestion, unconscious movement, expectation, and social reinforcement. A small number remain poorly documented rather than truly inexplicable. More speculative interpretations suggest mediums contacted unknown forms of intelligence instead of deceased humans. No reliable evidence establishes that conclusion. Still, Victorian spiritualism changed the occult landscape permanently. It moved supernatural experimentation from isolated manuscripts into drawing rooms. Ordinary families could sit around a table and attempt contact with the unseen without considering themselves magicians at all. Aleister Crowley became permanently associated with black magic despite rejecting that label. Few occult figures attracted publicity as intense as Aleister Crowley. Born in the 19th century, he became involved with ceremonial magic and later developed the religious philosophy of Thelema. Newspapers portrayed him as shockingly dangerous, and sensational descriptions followed him for decades. Crowley encouraged controversy himself, which made separating performance from belief difficult. He did not simply identify his work as black magic. In his own system, intention and spiritual development mattered more than the popular moral category. Critics saw something far darker. This conflict helped turn him into an enduring symbol of forbidden occultism. Modern portrayals often reduce his complicated writings to scandalous slogans. Admirers sometimes go too far in the other direction and treat every criticism as misunderstanding. The historical reality lies somewhere between mythology and self-created legend. Crowley experimented with ritual extensively and deliberately cultivated an intimidating public identity. There is no evidence he possessed supernatural powers. Yet he understood something undeniably powerful about reputation. By allowing the world to imagine him as a dangerous magician, he became more famous than countless quieter occultists. Modern ceremonial magic inherited symbols from sources separated by centuries and continents. A modern occult ritual can contain elements whose origins are surprisingly far apart. Hebrew divine names may sit beside Renaissance planetary symbols. Egyptian imagery can appear alongside Christian language. Tarot correspondences added by 19th century occultists may be presented with material from much older grimoires. This mixture sometimes creates the impression of one continuous ancient system. Historically, the connections were assembled gradually. Translation, trade, manuscript copying, colonial collecting, and modern publication all brought traditions into contact. Some occultists see the resulting synthesis as evidence that different cultures discovered the same hidden truths independently. Scholars are more likely to trace identifiable channels of borrowing and reinterpretation. The two views lead to very different stories. One imagines fragments of universal knowledge resurfacing repeatedly. The other sees creative people building new systems from inherited material. Either way, modern ceremonial magic is far less isolated than it first appears. A symbol used in one room today may have traveled through several languages and belief systems before arriving there. Its current meaning can be younger than the symbol itself by centuries. Horror fiction reshaped public ideas about black magic more than many historical traditions. Most people encounter black magic through stories long before they encounter historical sources. Novels, television, and horror films compress complicated traditions into recognizable images. A forbidden book summons danger. A ritual circle opens something unnatural. A mysterious symbol indicates secret evil. These conventions work because audiences understand them immediately. The problem is that repeated fiction can begin to feel like history. Practices from unrelated cultures become blended. Recent inventions acquire ancient backstories. Religious traditions may be inaccurately portrayed as sinister because filmmakers borrowed their imagery. Historians often spend more time correcting fictional assumptions than explaining actual magical practices. Yet fiction has also preserved interest in obscure texts that might otherwise be forgotten. Some modern occult practitioners discovered historical material through novels and later researched the real traditions behind it. The relationship, therefore, runs both ways. Magic inspires fiction, then fiction reshapes magic. Over time, the invented version can become culturally stronger than the original. That may be one of black magic's greatest mysteries. A story repeated often enough can create the tradition that later generations believe it was describing. Cinema turned complex occult symbols into instantly recognizable signs of fictional evil. A film has only seconds to tell viewers that something is dangerous. Symbols provide efficient visual language. Pentagrams, candles, strange alphabets, and ritual diagrams can communicate forbidden magic before any character speaks. The historical meanings of those symbols are often much broader. A pentagram has appeared in religious, mathematical, protective, and occult contexts. Its modern, sinister reputation depends heavily on presentation. Cinema learned to exploit that association and then strengthened it through repetition. Eventually, audiences began bringing the expectation back into real life. An unfamiliar symbol discovered in an old building might be called satanic, even when its actual history is unrelated. This feedback loop demonstrates how modern media manufactures supernatural meaning. Occult communities sometimes reclaim symbols and explain their older uses, but the cinematic version remains dominant. There is nothing mysterious about the production process itself. The mystery lies in its cultural power. A director can place one geometric shape on a wall and trigger centuries of fear in viewers who may not know where that fear came from. Urban legends created new cursed rituals designed specifically for modern homes. Not all supernatural traditions are ancient. Some of the most successful were invented recently and spread as though they had existed for generations. Urban legends describe games involving mirrors, dark rooms, telephones, elevators, or household objects. They often include precise rules and consequences. That structure makes them feel like genuine folklore. A participant can test the story personally, which adds excitement even when nothing occurs. Some legends develop so quickly online that their origin becomes difficult to trace. Within a few years, people may describe them as old rituals passed down secretly. Folklorists can sometimes reconstruct the actual development through archived websites and earlier versions. The result is fascinating because we can watch mythology forming in real time. No evidence shows that these modern games summon supernatural entities. They can still create intense experiences through expectation and darkness. A minor sound suddenly matters because the rules told the player to listen for it. Black magic folklore therefore does not merely survive the modern world. It adapts perfectly to bedrooms, apartment buildings, and ordinary technology. The internet transformed local occult rumors into worldwide supernatural challenges almost overnight. Before widespread internet access, a strange ritual story might remain within one town or region for years. Online communication changed that completely. A rumor can now cross continents in hours. People translate it and modify details as they repost. Videos then provide apparent demonstrations, while comments supply fresh testimony from strangers claiming personal experiences. This creates a feedback loop older folklore could never achieve so quickly. A ritual invented as fiction can become treated as genuine by people who encounter it without the original context. Researchers studying digital folklore have documented exactly this kind of transformation. Skeptics emphasize social contagion and imitation. Believers sometimes argue that repeated participation gives the ritual greater power by concentrating attention on it. No evidence supports a supernatural amplification effect. If attention certainly increases the number of reported experiences. The more participants there are, the more coincidences occur. Those coincidences then become new evidence for later participants. The internet did not merely distribute black magic stories. It created a global laboratory where legends can evolve faster than anyone can verify their origins. Cursed media legends suggest dangerous information can spread through images and recordings. Modern folklore has updated the idea of the forbidden book. Instead of a manuscript, the dangerous object may be a videotape, photograph, audio recording, file, or online post. The central fear remains the same. Information itself carries a threat. Horror fiction popularized this concept, but internet legends have taken it further by presenting supposedly cursed media as real. A viewer is warned that simply watching or sharing something could trigger consequences. Psychologically, this is extremely effective because the act of investigating becomes part of the story. Curiosity creates participation. Once someone has looked, ordinary technical problems or disturbing dreams can feel connected. No evidence shows that images or recordings transmit supernatural harm. They can transmit ideas, however, and ideas can strongly affect expectation. A threatening image may linger in memory for days. A disturbing sound can return mentally at night. Occult speculation interprets that persistence as something almost contagious. Science interprets it as cognition. Either way, the ancient fear of dangerous knowledge has adapted perfectly to digital technology. The scroll became the screen. Some people believe repeated attention can make an invented supernatural story feel real. A legend does not need ancient roots to develop emotional power. Repetition can create familiarity, and familiarity can create a strange sense of credibility. When thousands of people discuss the same supernatural figure or ritual, newcomers encounter a ready-made collection of images and expectations. They may then interpret ambiguous experiences through that framework. Psychologists can explain this through suggestion and social reinforcement. Online communities demonstrate the process vividly. Someone posts a frightening experience. Others compare similar moments. Differences are forgotten, while similarities become central. Over time, the story acquires stable rules. Some occult thinkers propose a more radical interpretation. They suggest concentrated belief might somehow generate or strengthen a thought form. Concepts such as egregores and tulpas are often invoked in these discussions, although the traditions behind those terms are more complex than internet summaries imply. There is no scientific evidence that collective thought creates independent supernatural beings. Yet collective belief unquestionably creates real cultural entities. A fictional character can influence behavior worldwide. The unresolved argument is whether influence ever becomes something more than psychological. Collective belief may explain why certain cursed places develop remarkably persistent reputations. Once a location becomes known as haunted or cursed, visitors arrive expecting unusual experiences. That expectation changes attention immediately. A floorboard creaks and feels significant. A cold area becomes evidence. A distant light appears mysterious because the story has already framed the environment. Reports accumulate and strengthen the reputation further. This process can continue for generations, even when the original incident is poorly documented. Psychologists and folklorists see powerful feedback at work. Believers sometimes argue that repeated emotional attention may leave a genuine imprint on a place. Some paranormal theories call this residual energy, although no accepted physical mechanism has been identified. The intriguing possibility is that both interpretations can produce similar reports. A visitor who feels watched has genuinely experienced that sensation, whether its cause was expectation or something external. The location then gains another story. Cursed places therefore become self-sustaining mysteries. Reputation changes experience, and experience reinforces reputation. Even if nothing supernatural ever occurred at the beginning, decades of belief can make the place feel charged before a visitor takes the first step inside. Psychology shows expectation can produce genuine sensations during supposedly supernatural experiences. Expectation is not merely an idea floating above the body. It can change what people physically feel. Placebo research shows that belief can influence pain and other symptoms. Nocebo effects demonstrate the darker side. Expecting harm can produce genuine discomfort. In supernatural settings, this becomes especially relevant. Tell someone a room is haunted, and they may report more unusual sensations than someone given neutral information. Heart rate can rise. Attention narrows. Normal bodily changes become easier to notice. None of this means every strange experience is imaginary in the dismissive sense. The sensations are real. The argument concerns their cause. Occult believers sometimes interpret expectation differently. They suggest fear may make a person more sensitive to influences normally ignored. Science has not established such hidden influences. Yet expectation clearly alters perception enough to imitate part of what people describe as magical attack. That makes black magic unusually difficult to investigate through personal testimony alone. A person can experience something profound without any external supernatural cause. Conviction and physical sensation are not opposites. They can create one another. Coincidence becomes especially powerful when people are already watching for magical patterns. Imagine someone is warned that a curse will reveal itself through unusual events. The next day, a clock stops. Later, an unfamiliar bird lands nearby. That evening, an old friend unexpectedly calls. None of those events is impossible. Together, they may feel like a pattern because attention has been primed to connect them. Human brains evolved to detect relationships quickly. Missing a real pattern can be costly, so we often accept false ones. Magical thinking exploits that tendency naturally. Once a person begins watching, the world supplies endless raw material. Believers respond that some coincidences are simply too precise to dismiss. They point to events involving names, timing, or repeated symbols. Probability theory warns that surprising combinations become inevitable across enormous numbers of daily experiences. The debate is difficult because emotional significance is not easily quantified. A coincidence that feels ordinary to one person can feel impossible to another. Black magic stories often begin at that exact moment. Chance stops feeling random. The sequence acquires intention, and an invisible explanation suddenly seems more reasonable than coincidence. Magical traditions often survive by adapting old beliefs to new technologies. Occult belief rarely disappears when technology changes. Instead, it learns new vocabulary. Older traditions imagined messages arriving through dreams or mirrors. Modern stories involve televisions, telephones, computer screens, and artificial intelligence. Protective symbols once scratched into doors can now appear as digital wallpapers. Curses that traveled through spoken rumor can spread through copied files. This adaptability suggests that the underlying ideas matter more than the physical objects. People remain interested in hidden influence, forbidden knowledge, and communication with unseen intelligence. Technology simply provides a fresh stage. Skeptics see this as evidence that supernatural stories are culturally constructed. If the mechanism changes whenever society changes, perhaps the story is following human imagination rather than external reality. Believers offer another possibility. They argue that if unknown forces existed, they might use whatever communication systems humans currently understand. There is no evidence proving that claim. Yet the pattern is fascinating. Black magic does not remain frozen in old manuscripts. It moves into each new medium almost as soon as ordinary people begin trusting that medium with their lives. Artificial intelligence has already begun appearing inside modern occult speculation. As artificial intelligence becomes more capable, some people have started asking whether it could play roles once assigned to oracles, automatic writing, or spirit communication. Most interactions are straightforward products of software trained on human-generated data. Yet the experience can feel uncanny when a system produces unexpectedly personal or symbolic language. Online communities sometimes interpret surprising outputs as signs that something more mysterious is happening. Others deliberately use AI to generate fictional rituals, divination prompts, or occult imagery. This creates a new problem for future folklore. Material invented by a machine can be reposted without context and later mistaken for an older tradition. Researchers may eventually need to separate historical occult sources from synthetic ones. More speculative thinkers ask whether a non-human intelligence might somehow use artificial systems as a channel. There is no evidence for that claim. Current AI behavior can be explained without supernatural assumptions. Even so, the cultural parallel is striking. Humans once stared into mirrors hoping an unfamiliar intelligence would answer. Now, millions type questions into glowing screens and receive language back immediately. Online communities now reconstruct forgotten rituals from incomplete historical manuscripts. Digitized libraries have made obscure magical texts accessible to readers who once would never have seen them. A manuscript stored in a European archive can be viewed across the world within seconds. Enthusiasts compare translations and attempt to reconstruct missing steps from related sources. This has produced remarkable collaborative scholarship, but it also creates uncertainty. Historical rituals were often incomplete. Copyists made mistakes. Materials changed names. Some instructions assumed background knowledge that was never written down. Modern practitioners therefore fill gaps. Once those reconstructions circulate widely, later readers may mistake them for the original tradition. Historians try to separate source material from modern editions. Occult communities may be less concerned if the reconstruction seems symbolically coherent. That difference creates two versions of authenticity. One asks what people actually did centuries ago. The other asks whether a reconstructed system feels effective today. No supernatural claims have been verified through this process. Yet something genuinely unprecedented is happening. Thousands of strangers can now collaborate on a ritual whose last known practitioner may have died before electricity became common. Researchers still discover magical inscriptions hidden inside ordinary archaeological collections. Museums hold enormous numbers of objects that were excavated decades ago and never studied exhaustively. As researchers revisit collections, inscriptions once ignored or misunderstood can acquire new significance. A scratched symbol may turn out to be a protective mark. A folded metal sheet may contain a curse. An object catalogued as ordinary jewelry may have been an amulet. New imaging techniques can reveal writing too faint to read previously. These discoveries remind us that the archaeological record is not finished when an excavation ends. Hidden information can remain inside storage drawers for generations. Occult enthusiasts sometimes interpret such finds as evidence that ancient magic was far more widespread than historians admit. Scholars generally agree that magical practices were common in many societies, but resist treating every unusual object as ritual. Context matters. The exciting part is that genuine surprises still happen. A forgotten artifact can suddenly connect to a tradition nobody realized was represented at the site. Black magic history therefore remains open-ended. Some of its most interesting evidence may already have been discovered physically, but not recognized intellectually. Some supposedly ancient occult traditions may actually be surprisingly modern inventions. Age carries authority in the occult world. A practice described as ancient feels weightier than something created recently. That encourages legends of uninterrupted transmission. Historical research often reveals a more complicated story. Certain rituals presented as remnants of distant antiquity were assembled during the 19th or 20th century from older fragments and modern interpretation. Others were created almost entirely within recent decades. This does not automatically make them meaningless to practitioners. A tradition can become culturally important regardless of its age. The mystery lies in how quickly invented antiquity becomes accepted memory. One author makes a speculative claim. Later writers repeat it without checking the source. Eventually, thousands of people encounter the statement as established history. The internet accelerates that process enormously. Some occult believers respond that a modern revival can still rediscover ancient truths intuitively. That idea cannot be tested easily. Historians prefer documentary evidence. Both approaches define authenticity differently. The result is a strange landscape where the oldest-sounding ritual in the room may actually be the youngest, while an ordinary-looking custom may genuinely be centuries old. Black magic remains mysterious because belief itself can change how events are remembered. Memory does not record experience like a camera. Each recollection is reconstructed, and later information can influence what feels certain. This matters enormously in stories about curses and supernatural encounters. A person may experience several unrelated events. After deciding they were cursed, earlier details become reorganized around that conclusion. The argument from last week now feels ominous. A dream that seemed meaningless suddenly looks prophetic. Retelling strengthens the connections further. Eventually, the story can become internally perfect, even if the original sequence was messier. Psychology explains this without accusing anyone of dishonesty. Sincere memories can change. Believers sometimes suggest memory works in the opposite direction too. Perhaps a supernatural event is initially dismissed, then understood correctly only after later evidence appears. There is no general test that resolves every personal story. That uncertainty may be the deepest reason black magic survives. The evidence is often experiential rather than physical. People remember patterns that convinced them. Skeptics remember the missing controls. Between those viewpoints lies a mystery shaped partly by whatever the observer already believes. We have wandered through a subject that has followed human beings for thousands of years. We have seen how black magic could be feared as a hidden attack, preserved inside forbidden books, or suspected when ordinary life suddenly stopped making sense. We have also seen how quickly the boundary between protection and danger could change depending on who was telling the story. Behind many of these mysteries sits the same unsettling idea. Perhaps the visible world is not the whole story. Maybe the old practitioners misunderstood coincidence. Maybe frightened communities gave supernatural explanations to events that science can explain today. Or perhaps, as some people still wonder, fragments of those traditions were attempts to describe experiences we do not yet understand. We may never know exactly what every hidden symbol meant. We may never reconstruct every lost ritual or discover why certain stories survived while thousands of others disappeared. Some mysteries remain because the evidence is incomplete. Others remain because belief changes the way evidence feels. For now, none of that needs an answer. Let your breathing settle into its own pace. Allow the room around you to become less important. The old manuscripts can close. The candles can fade. The unanswered questions can remain exactly where they are until another night. And if you happen to still be awake, there should be another sleepy mystery waiting for you on the screen. You can follow it whenever you feel like wandering a little further. If you enjoyed tonight's journey, you're always welcome to subscribe, leave a thought below, or return whenever you need another mystery to fall asleep to. There is nothing more you need to solve tonight. Sleep well, and good night.